Good morning. We'll stand for the invocation by Pastor Philip Nation, First Baptist Church of Bradenton, and then the pledge.
Thank you. Father in heaven, we thank you that you have revealed yourself to us through your word as just that, Father, that we can come before you with our needs and our petitions. And Lord, this morning we ask that you would bless these men and women who gather to lead and to guide work within our county. We ask that you would allow them the grace to have discernment today in overseeing all of the issues that will be brought before them. God, we ask that you would allow them to see clearly those things which are just and those things which are unjust. Lord, that they would sense that grace is available for them and for us. And we ask that you would do a significant work among our citizens here in Manatee County, that there would be times of refreshment in people's lives and renewal of homes and families within our citizenry. We thank you that we can call upon you and ask you to do this good work among us. For it is in the name of Jesus that I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. County Attorney, can we read the changes of the agenda without a quorum?
Madam Chair, do we have?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Could we have the changes to the agenda, please?
Changes to the consent agenda under Public Works, item number 38, Braden River Shores Sidewalk Agreement. The area and site maps were added to the item. Number 39, Braden River Shores Wastewater Connection Agreement. A design map and alternatives connections plan was added to this item. There's one addition to the regular agenda under Financial Management, item number 53. Florida Department of Environmental Protection Grant Agreement for Red Tide Management. We request that be added as part of the 9:30 time certain. It's a request for one, authorization to execute and submit Florida Department of Environmental Protection Grant Agreement for Red Tide Management and for and within Manatee County. And two, adoption of a budget resolution B-18-102, amending the annual budget for Manatee County, Florida for fiscal year 2018. Those are the suggested changes.
Thank you. Can we start future agenda items, Mr. Attorney, without a quorum? Citizen
comments? No, ma'am.
And then we will recess until we get a fourth.
Never seen this.
Never happened.
kind of important for
All
us.
right, we are back. Does any commissioners have anything on the consent agenda they want to pull? That's items 6 through 43. Okay, seeing no one come forward, we will move on, and we will now go to citizens' comments. We do have a 9:30 time certain, so this is time for the citizens to talk about future agenda items. Anybody, I have one card, Glenn Giubilini, future agenda items. All right, anyone else wish to speak on a future agenda item? No one come forward, we'll close future agenda items. And
Glenn's outside. Somebody might want to tell him that he was
He
called.
was outside, right outside the door.
He's right outside the door.
Unless the TV's not on, he didn't hear it.
He's not here. He just
I just
spoke
said
to
hi to him.
me. Yeah, I
I
did
know
too.
he's there.
Saw him. The door open, what?
Do we have a,
Lose.
Well, I just,
all right, well, he's also for, does anyone from the public wish to speak on the consent agenda items, which is items number 6 through 43? I do have one signed up, Glenn Giubilino.
can somebody tell him, can he hear, the TV's on? He's right there.
Seeing,
Glenn.
oh, good.
seeing no one come
have the
forward, we'll
meeting
close
without
public
him.
comment. What's the pleasure of the board on the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, motion to approve consent.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion passes. All right, we are now on item number 44. Nope, no, item number 45. Someone from the Building and Development Services? Wow. We take a 5-minute recess before the
And no one's here.
and everybody is out of order. I cannot start the red tide until 9:30. Do we have anybody, number 45?
Wait, can you,
How about 46?
It's like an auction.
45, hold on.
Six, from the building. John was down here.
No,
We need a staff to present it first.
yeah, so just
They're
give him
here.
a minute.
Presentation upon request.
All right, Jan, can you do 48? Or 40, or,
Wait, it's presentations upon request, so if we request a presentation, we need staff, Madam Chair, correct?
5,
okay, do y'all have a request a presentation on 45?
But perhaps I could just read it into the record. Somebody could just read
Number
what the
45
item is
into the
into the
record?
record, just staff maybe, just.
Yeah, and then,
Commissioner Whitmore?
I have no, I don't wish to have a presentation, but do you need us to read it?
Would you like to read number 45 into the record, please?
Sure. if I can-
I'm happy to do so. Do you want me
Go
to read
ahead.
into the record the action requested?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Adopt ordinance number 18-30, contracting the boundaries of the Artisan Lakes Community Development District.
so move. Second.
All right, I do have public comment from a Jareem Earlywine on number 45.
Good morning. My name is Jared Earlywine, just here on behalf of the petitioner. Happy to answer any questions you all may have.
All right, thank you. How about Dr. Alan Potus on number 45? Same thing? On the, you have, wish to say anything?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Alan Potus. I'm a retired urologist. My wife and I moved here 20 months ago, became residents and homeowners in Esplanade Division of Artisan Lakes. I'm here to speak neither for nor against the amendment. This is a personal comment as a homeowner. I understand the proposal correctly. This is an appeal to reduce the size of the district by 434 acres. I do not know what financial or other benefit accrues to the developer if this change in district boundaries occurs. That's not what I came to speak about. However, there is in place a CDD covering the existing Community Development District. Homeowners are annually assessed to support this CDD. If the size of the district is decreased as requested, am I correct in assuming that the CDD will then cover a decreased land size and financial support of the CDD will of necessity decrease? And then those of us who are assessed for the CDD will be required to pay less annually than we now pay. I appreciate the opportunity to bring before you this question, as the Board of Supervisors of the existing CDD has not provided any information to the homeowners about this subject.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on, anybody else wish to speak only on item number 45? If not, we will close public comment. Commissioner Benak.
I was just going to ask, maybe somebody from the applicant's side could respond to the gentleman's question.
Sure. Again, this is Chair Earlywine on behalf of the applicant with Hopping Green and Sam's. In response to the question, right now the development is split down the middle by Artisan Lakes Parkway, and there's an eastern side and a western side. The western side has financed public infrastructure improvements just for the western side, and that infrastructure is located within the western portion of the community. So the debt assessments that are in place that paid for that infrastructure will remain in place. They won't be reduced, but you're also only paying for the stuff that's benefiting your property to begin with. So that's not going to change. I think one thing that is different is obviously on the operating side. So we're talking about the debt. On the operating side, of course, on a going forward basis, again, they're only going to pay operating expenses for their side of the community, and that's ultimately the answer. So the bottom line is your assessments are not going to go down per se, but you've only been paying for the western portion all along. So I think that's the answer. Unless you have any further questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Ball.
Yeah, one more question for the applicant. I'm just curious, generally CDDs don't change to my knowledge, generally. So can you tell us why you're looking to change the boundaries of the CDDs now?
Sure. If you recall, this CDD in particular was established some time ago prior to the recession, and the development plan has just changed a little bit, where the western side developed faster and sort of in its own structure. So it's really its own community. The western side is known as Esplanade. The eastern side is being developed on a different time frame and sort of a different development plan now. And really just due to the recession, sort of slowed down the progress early on.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Benak.
So there'll be no CDD covering the eastern side at this time? Do you anticipate that at some time in the future they will have to establish their own CDD to pay for the infrastructure and that?
Well, actually, the next item on your agenda is 46, and that will establish a new CDD in place for that community. So.
Okay, that
All
makes
right,
sense.
seeing no one else, we have I believe, a motion made by Commissioner DeSabatino and seconded by Commissioner Whitmore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion passes. All right, number 40,
46?
That's okay.
On
Doesn't matter.
Commissioner Whitmore. But
That's fine.
Vicky has
I
whoever
just
seconded.
told Vicki, I don't remember making
It
a
was
second,
me.
so.
It might have been Commissioner, it was Commissioner, was it Commissioner Johnson?
Commissioner Ball.
Commissioner Ball.
Didn't say anything. Yeah.
This little short kid
Give you
sitting
some.
Just to
over
get the
there.
record state. All right, Mr. Palmer, if you read number 46 in.
Item number 46, requested action is as follows. Adopt ordinance number 18-31 to establish Artisan Lakes East Community Development District.
Any presentations upon request? No. The only one I have signed up is Mr. Earlywine, and I assume the same, you're here for information if we need it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve?
Okay.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak on item number 46? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close item number 46. We have a motion made by Commissioner DeSabatino, seconded by Commissioner Ball. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
It was the other way around.
We got it.
Way around. Thank you.
We got it.
Hey,
We got it.
one of them mornings, what can we say? All right, number 47, Mr. Palmer, you're on a roll.
My pleasure, Madam Chair. Action requested on item number 47, adopt ordinance number 18, excuse me, yes? Adopt ordinance number 18-32 to establish the aviary at Rutland Ranch Community Development District.
All right, does anyone need a presentation?
Second.
We have a motion made by Commissioner DeSabatino and seconded by Commissioner Ball. I think I finally got one right. Mr. Earlywine, do you?
Again, just here for questions if you'll have them.
All right, anyone else wish to speak on item number 47? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion passes. All right, number 48.
That's a time certain.
That's a time
48
certain
is
at
a time
10.
certain?
And is 53 a time certain?
No.
No.
All right, 53.
part of the 9:30.
Oh, that's part of the 9:30.
That's part of the 9:30 also, all right?
Number
Where's
50?
53 at?
All right, number 49, is that time certain? Yes, it is, okay. Number 50.
Who did all these time certs?
Saw Bob. We're on 50
He's
now,
coming.
guys.
We should have done commissioner comments when we had the chance.
We just got off our rhythm.
Morning. Bill Steele, Transit Division, Public Works Department. Today's agenda item is the Transit Development Plan major update. So every year we update our plan, but every 5 years we do a major update. That's required by state implementing rule. So Ryan has a brief presentation on what we've accomplished in the plan for the next 10 years.
Good morning, everyone. Ryan Suarez, Planning Manager with the Transit Division here in Manatee County. One thing we'd like to mention here to start off, you'll see draft in the agenda item in the report. This is actually draft pending any changes you might have to the report. It will be final, once approved here, submitted to FDOT, which Bill, like Bill mentioned, this is an FDOT requirement. We prepare it every 5 years. So to go through this, I think I got about 10 or 15 minutes here. I'll try to go through these quickly. The plan is a reflection of an extensive public outreach process that we followed. We did go out and talk to passengers on the bus. We had an onboard survey. We did several workshops, open house workshops throughout the community. We did something in Palmetto. We were at State College talking to students. We did something here at the County Administration Building. We went out and did a focus group, a planning charrette with different stakeholders throughout the community. And the important thing here is the feedback that we got helps us set the priorities for the plan and what you see in the plan now. I got a long list of items here on this slide. And the point here is these are accomplishments from our previous TDP. And the point we want to make is this isn't just a plan that sits on the shelf. We actually do what we say we're going to do that's outlined in the plan. I won't go through all of these. I'd love to talk about each and every one because we do get excited about what's been accomplished. But I've highlighted a few which are important, and they're related directly to service enhancements that we've made out in the field. And I'll get to this slide here just to summarize what we've done. One of the key things that we did was optimize service. We took a hard look at what's out there. We looked at routes and service areas which were not performing. When I say that, it means we weren't getting enough ridership or weren't meeting ridership levels that we aspire to. And we reallocated some of those service hours to our core network. We brought the Manatee Avenue route, which is the Route 3. We took it from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. We did integrate some innovation into our service area. You'll see that with the Longboat Key shuttle service. We had a route out on the island which was not performing as well as some of the other routes in the network. Now we have an on-demand service which is scaled to demand. We did expand the service area as well. We've got our service now, our fixed route service going into St. Petersburg, service into Rabonia, and we did extend service out on State Road 70 out to the college, Manatee Technical College. So just a handful of actions that we took in terms of service. Certainly not everything, because we're doing things constantly to improve running times, improve the on-time performance out in the field, and making minor adjustments to routes. On the infrastructure and technology side, again, another list. I'm not going to go through all of these as well, but I highlighted some things that might be of interest, and I've got a few slides here to illustrate some of the things that we've accomplished, starting with the improvements out in the field to our bus stops. This is probably the most visible part of our service, aside from the vehicles that are out on the street. You'll see that we really transformed what was out there in the past by adding sidewalk connections, adding branded amenities, seating, shelters, trash cans, again, branded with the county color scheme, that aqua and rust color orange that you see out in the field. More importantly, this assists us in complying with ADA requirements, Americans with Disabilities Act requirements for our facilities. You'll see the branding, we've carried it through, again, not just to our amenities, but on the vehicles. You'll see vehicles here for the fixed route fleet and the handy buses. We're also adding that to the stations. You see DeSoto Station there on the bottom left. And we're also going to do something similar here to the Palmetto Station. We're planning to kick that off sometime later this fall. In response to a lot of comments we got about smaller vehicles, we are integrating and diversifying the fleet with smaller vehicles. This is an example of what is currently in operation right now in the field. This is the first one of many that we want to, again, inject into the service. There's a number of advantages that we get from these smaller vehicles. First one is cost. The second one is maneuverability. This helps us get into some of those mobile home parks, parking lot areas. It just helps us, gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of getting to the doorstep of where we need to pick people up from. It's also lower in terms of its clearance, so if there's any low clearance areas we need to access, this helps us in that area as well. We've done a lot with technology. We added the counters on the buses, which tell us where people are getting on, how many at every stop. This helped us with the optimization. We integrated interactive voice response system on the handy bus service, which is the paratransit service. So now folks can call in. They get notifications about where their bus is at, how long they have to wait. We want to do the same thing with the fixed route. This is where you get the real-time bus information. The equipment, we launched a project just recently where we're going to add the equipment on the fixed route vehicles. We're going to know where the bus is, and we'll be able to relay that information to passengers. Through the TDP process, one of the things we heard from passengers and non-passengers, non-users alike, is we want to know where the bus is. Tell us where the bus is. Do I have to wait 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 60 minutes? That's important to passengers out in the field. And they'll be able to get this information on their cell phones. They'll be get it via the website. We're going to put some dynamic messaging signs at the stations as well. We're also going to be adding these video monitors on the fixed route fleet, where we'll be able to post some public service announcements, detour information to passengers on the vehicles. So this is exciting. We've launched it. Right now it's in design, and we're hoping to have this ready and available to riders sometime next spring, maybe the summer. The mobile ticket program. Been very well received out in the community. And in all honesty, I wish everyone was on the mobile ticket. This provides a number of advantages to us as operator, reducing cash handling, speeding up the boarding. We want to expand the program. We've got our regional passes on there. We've got our local passes. We'd like to get some programs set up for some special groups, universities, try something with the handy bus users as well. So we've got a couple ideas on how we can get more people on the mobile ticket. And we plan to implement maybe some pilots here in the coming year. Important, we are working the grants as staff. We are looking for all the opportunities that are out there to supplement the program, to supplant local funding that may be being used for operations. We did get a $2 million grant from FTA, and this is important because these are discretionary grants. These are very competitive grants. The bus and bus facilities infrastructure grant from FTA, there were $2 billion in applications that were made for this grant program. $260 million were awarded throughout the country. Only 3 agencies in the state received funding. We were one, Miami-Dade was the second, and Lee County was the third. We made the papers for it. This is big news for us, and this is important strategically because this takes the load off the formula grants that we use for capital, and it helps us on the replacement side. And those vehicles are expensive. We do need to get them replaced. They do have a useful life, and there really isn't enough formula funding for us to be able to replace those when they need to be replaced. This money helps substantially. Okay, so that was everything we've done. Not everything, but at least some highlights. This is what's upcoming in the plan in the 10-year program, and that's the planning horizon for the TDP. That's the expectation of FDOT when they review this plan. You'll see it will focus on service, and what you'll see here is the plan's broken out into 2 phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2, Phase 1 being the first 5 years, and Phase 2 being the second 5 years. To organize these service improvements, not have to go into too much detail about every single one. You'll see improvements to the core network, which includes Cortez Road, Route 6, Route 99, the US 41 service. That particular route corridor right there by far gathered and gained the most support from the public outreach. This is from cities, this is from users, this is from non-users who are interested in seeing that corridor bolstered in terms of its service. We also have there the first on the list, that beach park and ride service. This is our pilot, our test to see if in fact this park and ride concept is going to work. It is a core network enhancement because it's on Manatee Avenue. Remember that our core network consists of Cortez, Manatee, US 41, and then if you want to add AMI, the trolley as well, that's definitely a core network service. We have some improvements to the handy bus in both phases. We have a population out there that's getting older. We do see the demand. We've got to focus on how we're going to meet that demand in the future. So you'll see a handy bus level of service improvement in phase 1 and in phase 2. There's some innovation integrated here. We also want to keep an eye out for emerging technologies. That's why you see a micro-transit pilot program. We do know that there's some vendors out there that might be able to help us with some same-day on-demand service. This is happening throughout the country. We need to take a hard look at this and see if there's some opportunities out in the community. I want to mention the consolidation of the Route 99, the US 41 service, single agency operation under Manatee County. This is important for us. As staff, as county, we provide a customer service out in the community, our transit service. Given the technology implementation, you're standing out at a bus stop waiting for the Route 99. If you're using your phone, we've invested all this money, you're at a bus stop, you want to know where that bus is, and now only 2 of the 5 buses that operate on US 41 show up in that application. It doesn't work. So that's on the technology side. More importantly for us in terms of operations and customer service, this provides us as the ones who respond, and it's much easier on the operational side for one agency to respond to all complaints, provide oversight, even commendations, whatever may happen out in the field. And I think that's all I'll touch on now. Maybe, Bill, you want to close?
So again, we've referenced this as the draft final report. All of these that you see as projects are subject ultimately to your approval before implementation. Many times we're seeking FDOT match funding, but we'll also need some local funding. So think about this as the master plan, but ultimately these projects come back to you as decision units. That first project, for instance, while you were on break, we did file that for service development FDOT funding. That would not necessarily be a decision unit. We have the wherewithal within our cost center to implement that one. It would be seasonal, 3 days a week. But the other ones are more substantive and would require local funding in most instances. So again, the action today that we're requesting is adoption of the plan and authorization to submit this to DOT. When we submit it to DOT, it keeps us eligible for all of the FDOT assistance, urban corridor, and all those discretionary funds, service development, as well as our block grant. With that, we can answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Well, this is the first time, I know in 8 years, a report from Transit. I mean, you're really rocking it. I mean, you are just driving this bus, so to speak.
Appreciate that.
And I remember last year, you won the award for the bus up to the Veterans Hospital. So, this is exciting. And I had asked earlier in the year about smaller buses, and then you got some grants to, or hopefully get those in place, and that's great, because not every route needs a big bus, sometimes a smaller bus. But then you also might need to convert one of the larger buses to more of a handy bus because you have so much demand on that end. But you're really, you got your hands on it's just rocking it. And, people are coming in and who's getting on at what stop and so forth. And I know the riders love the interaction with the drivers, and it's just a real nice experience. The park and ride to the beach, that's excellent. And couple other questions. Are people taking their bikes on to the bus? Do you have, I know you have like capacity of like 3 bikes. Are they utilizing that?
We have capacity on the buses. Where we need additional capacity, we actually put bike racks at stops. So we can work with passengers on those amenities as well.
Awesome. And are you working with any, and kudos on the grant, the only one of 3, so that's just awesome. Getting any more stops that have the wonderful branding with the benches to get the coverage, the shelters.
Yes. So that continues. We've made 400 stop improvements in roughly the last 4 years, about 100 a year. We're about to engage in a new procurement to award a contract, but we can extend the existing contract at the same time so we don't miss a beat.
Good. And great news about the cell phone updates, video monitors. One thing, it just came to mind. The other day, someone had called me that they have 2 dogs, and every year when they need to renew the dog's tags, they get the bill, and in the bill it says, "Do you wish to donate to animal services?" And so I thought maybe in our utility bills or something, if people want to donate to help support and subsidize the elderly or disadvantaged, and donate to that, we could set up a mechanism. I just thought that would help out, our seniors, our disadvantaged, and donate that way.
We have made some inroads there. We started the prepaid fare program for Handy Bus. So there are people in the community that sponsor passengers.
Right.
And now with the mobile ticketing, you can actually purchase a pass for someone else.
Right,
So
but
we're seeing some of that as well.
If you put it in the bill, then more people would know about it. So
Absolutely.
do I need a motion to explore that, or?
Are you making one?
I'll make a motion to.
Second.
To put it on the bill, or,
A motion
yeah,
to explore it.
motion to explore it? Okay. To put it on our utility bills and see if people want to donate and where it would donate and the fund it would go to.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll work on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore,
We have a motion. We need to
Motion.
vote.
do we want to finish the discussion?
Can I ask a question on the motion? I want to
Okay.
discuss something, but I want to ask a question on the motion. So the idea would be that that it would have to be some sort of nonprofit, right? I mean, kind of like animal services is, right? I mean, we
It
can't.
comes into the general fund
Can't just
flag
get
for.
donations, they're called taxes, right?
Aren't you
Everybody
talking about the
freely donates
disadvantaged?
those to the county government. but-
We'll explore how to go about doing it,
Right,
report
right.
back to the board once we do the exploration.
Just wanna make sure what
Explore
I'm
is the operative word. Bear in mind, Commissioners, there are literally thousands of worthy nonprofits out there. And so the question that begs is, which ones will you choose to solicit donations for within utility billings? So
I don't think you're understanding me.
No, I
It's-
don't think the
this is for
motion's being understood.
This is for the average citizen. You get your utility bill, and you have a question. And when you include your payment, would you like to include a separate payment for the disadvantaged and so forth, to get the
What's
proper
the
wording
bus
on
line
it?
called that we never have enough money for?
Transportation disadvantage.
The
Yes.
handy bus.
The
Yeah.
ADA handy bus.
Right.
That's what I'm talking
So,
about.
or whatever.
Handy bus.
Or if it's for the veterans to go to Bay Pines. So you could just
We'll
flag it.
explore that
wherever.
with county
Okay.
administration and find a way that makes sense to
So
set
it's
that
not for
up.
someone to send it to a different nonprofit, it's for us to help
It's a
fund
sponsorship
those-
program.
Exactly.
For, yeah,
I like
clients.
that,
transport-
sponsorship.
That financially need it,
Sponsorship sounds good.
like Maurice. Use her as an example.
On the motion?
All right,
Question.
Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, regarding the motion, I assumed, that's what I get perhaps for assuming, was that we were talking about the handicap bus, because I know we always have trouble funding that, and we've had to change how we handle that. So when you said disabled, et cetera, that's what I thought
Right.
we were talking about. Is that correct?
Well, they'll explore, because it could be for people who take the regular bus, but are still disadvantaged and don't take the handy bus, so
But
let's,
definitely, I think the first priority is handy bus sponsorship.
I
And
would
that
like to go
prepaid
ahead
fare
and
account, that's
Vote
the
on the
easiest thing to
motion,
start
and then we'll
with.
continue the discussion. We have a motion to explore the possibility
open
of
it up
helping
to
the
public
disadvantaged. Anyone from the public wish to speak on just this one particular motion? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. We have a motion made by Commissioner Sabatino, seconded by Commissioner Ball, I think. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion passes. Now we'll get back to just regular discussion on bus lines.
Right.
Commissioner Whitmore.
I'm the chairman of the Transportation Disadvantage, so thank you for that motion, and maybe it can go somewhere, because we know citizens in Manatee County that live on like $500 or $600 a month, that, and they're disabled, and they have to take that, so. ADA trips, which are people that use a handy bus, and some of you know this, but the staff had brought to my attention that we have dialysis patients in DeWitt and out east, Mayaca. And it was taking a full bus because they're on different schedules. So 7 days a week, we would have to go out there, bring the person back, wait 4 hours, take them back home. So I contacted the medical community, the nephrologist. They said, we don't care. You can make them all one day. So that freed up our handy bus for others so we could add more trips. But what you did see in the presentation is their goal is to go up to 375 trips a day. Right now, they only have staff, after we increase their staff, for 350, and that's been like that for a few years now. So our goal is to go up to 375 in the future. The only way we can do it is add more bus drivers. We have the buses, we don't have the bus drivers. And somebody else mentioned the smaller buses. Those are equipped for the disadvantage. They have like room for 2 or 3 wheelchairs now where the big buses didn't. So it's working well. But the only way on next budget we could look at to increase that would be add more bus drivers for ADA, for handicap bus. That's it.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are rocking it. Ryan and Bill, you're doing a great job. I will tell you, I'm your representative on the MPO, Public Transportation Task Force, which means our small group gets together. I don't know how many of you have been to some of those meetings, but we get together with Sarasota County and we talk about, our bus service and what's happening in our transit services. And I really enjoy always being able to beat them. Sarasota County at the number of bus stops. We have El Mayo and I have this little thing going where we're in competition to see who's doing more bus stops and bringing them up to ADA compliance. And we are, excuse the French, kicking their butt. So I do enjoy being able to represent Manatee County and the great work that you're doing. Bringing in these grants is so important. I don't think people realize how much of local government is funded through grants. And that means we have to have people that know how to get these grants, how to manage these grants, make sure that we perform under the grant criteria. And I know these federal grants, they're huge when it comes to compliance requirements. So I just want to congratulate our staff on the great job they're doing. The Beach Connection Shuttle, I've been talking about it, and I'm so excited that we're finally going to have kind of a pilot program. So, I really think we're doing great things in Manatee County, and I don't think people sometimes realize that. Most of us don't ride the bus. I get it. I've ridden it on, Tri-Transit Day. I've ridden my bike to the stop and put my bike on it just to see what it's like, and I encourage everybody to at least try it. Because, as we get more urbanized in our urban core areas, we've set the goal for this is really going to be important. So I want to thank staff for everything they're doing and also this board for being supportive. So thanks.
Thank you so
Commissioner
much.
Ball, do you have a question on the master
No,
plan, or that was
I'm-
only on the motion?
Sorry, yeah.
All
that's
right.
it.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on item number 50, which is the transportation plan? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. What's the pleasure of the board on the plan?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner DeSabatino, a second by Commissioner Whitmore. Commissioner Whitmore?
That's what I was going to make the motion.
Oh, okay. All right, we have a motion on the board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion passes. All right, we will now start our 9:30 time certain, which I believe is 49
Yes.
and 53. Morning, Bob.
Morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Smith, Director of Public Safety. The team who has been coordinating and overseeing the response to the red tide issues here in the county are going to be giving you an update on the work that they've been doing, the cleanup and the response to the red tide. Before we do that, you have in your agenda packet a resolution. We're requesting the declaration of a local emergency. This is simply an administrative step at this point. It brings us into alignment with the other counties who were impacted by the governor's declaration last week, those counties in our region as well. More importantly, at this point, there is no state-level traditional disaster assistance or FEMA assistance on the board for responding or recovering from this particular incident. But as this progresses, as we go through the work, as the other counties that are impacted go through the cleanup work, and as the state goes through the cleanup work, should those funds potentially become available, this declaration will be part of the process that's required for us to apply for any funding that may become available. So at this point, there's no anticipation of any type of emergency operations center activation. Right now, the EOC is running the Citizens Information Center, the hotline that you've seen the number, but the EOC itself will stay at a level 3 monitoring. Again, this is simply an administrative step. Should funds become available in the future, we can apply for them. So that's what that resolution is before we get into the presentation. If there's any questions on that.
Commissioner Whitmore.
When you give the presentation, some of us have got battle scars on our backs already. So when we do give our presentation, can you bring up why we have chosen the company we have? And again, why aren't we currently using local fishermen? Steve and I had a rough weekend. I don't know about Betsy, but.
Believe it or not, District 5 did too.
Okay, so
Over
we would
that
like
issue.
to.
Absolutely, and Charlie Hunziker is here to give a presentation on all of that and the particulars of the contractor that was selected.
you.
So.
Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, I was glad to hear you say that because I had read in the paper that we were told that we had the funding from state and federal sources to do this cleanup. And I asked, I said, wow, that's cool. I wasn't aware of that. And it just simply was not true. I think that hopefully what was stated meant that there are opportunities for this funding, and we're going to pursue them. And I'm sure our staff will. If there are no, I'm going to know. Well, we're going to do what we can do with the funding we have, I guess. But I did anybody else read that on the front page of the paper? It said that we had funding, and I was like, what?
There is
Actually,
some
I
funding
was told
available,
that.
but it's through the Division of Environmental,
Right, DEP.
it's through DEP. It's not disaster or FEMA-related
it's just
funding.
help.
So that's a
Yeah,
separate
no, this
process.
was not what I read yesterday. It
Okay,
was last
yeah.
week. And it said, it was one of somebody who was quoted saying that there was federal funds available to Manatee County to do this. And I was like, I wasn't aware of that. And that's not true. We are going to pursue funding with DEP. That's on our agenda, I know, so thank you.
All right. Present away.
Okay, we just need the vote on the resolution for the declaration as well.
Yeah, I move we approve Resolution R-18-145 as presented.
Second.
All right.
That was me.
Thank you. This item number 49 or item number 53? Only because I have some public comment on 49, but this is actually,
This is 49.
This is
the
49.
resolution's 49?
Yes.
49.
All right, then we're going to open this up for public comment, number 49, and we're very lucky to have the Honorable Mayor of Bradenton Beach, John Chappie, former county commissioner. And for being honorable, you'll get 3 minutes and 5 seconds.
Honorable.
No, 3 minutes.
Honorable?
You get an extra 5 seconds, honorable.
Thank you very much, John Chappie,
Take it
Bradenton
off.
Beach. Thank you for the honorable. I don't usually get that.
Yeah, I know.
Still in the public light a little bit. No, I just wanted to make a point of coming down here to thank all of you for what you're doing and your reaction to this, declaring the local state of emergency. The team that you have out there on the island is amazing. They are doing great work in monitoring and cleaning up. They were out there again today. I just can't thank you enough. I also wanted to take the opportunity in front of all the news and everybody. The island is open for business. Our restaurants, our hoteliers, we are open for business. The county parks and recreation, they're open for business out there. Come on out. It's not bad. We've seen it a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
This is, in my opinion, of 45 years, and Carol, you've been out there longer than I have. She's older than me.
No, I'm not.
The
That's not true.
seen it a lot worse, and it's not bad at all. You can walk along the beaches. It's just wonderful out there, and we are open for business. And a major reason is because of the team that the county has out there and their cleanup activities. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good job.
On.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on item number 49?
Honorable.
Got so skinny.
This is on the declaration, right? Is this for 49 or 53?
49, all right, go ahead and
It's all right. I
state your
can
name.
take
You have
it in.
3 minutes.
My name is Stuart Smith, and I'm here representing the Wild Oak Bay community. And this is Tracy Settle, who also lives in Wild Oak Bay. We've handed these questions to you to kind of an agenda for you to perhaps get answered in the presentation. I've also given them to Charlie Hunsicker, and so he's already answered them, actually. And so I'm sure you'll hear from him on all these as well as many other things. I think what it comes down to is, from what we know about the activity so far, and it's great that you got this going so quickly. But there are some people who have already suffered with this for a week. We've had people move out. We've had workers coming to do work in our community that have gotten sick and left. So it really is quite intense where we are. And I think that the key thing, and Charlie will address this, is that I don't know if this is that. When you get people to do the canals and stuff, that's all great. Canals flush back and forth, in and out sometimes. Sometimes you go there, it's horrible. The next day you go there, it's all gone. But where we live, in El Conquistador and Wild Oak Bay, we live behind Long Bar. Once the fish get over Long Bar, they don't go out. We're not all mangrove lined. We have some small pocket beaches here, and even from mangroves, some of the fish extend out a long way. We're just concerned that part of the cleanup get some priority, and if we don't have the appropriate equipment to handle that part of it, we may want to think about making some adjustments to the plan. And we'd like to hear from Charlie, because we need to move ahead locally in our community and some neighboring communities. If we have to do it on our own, we need to know that, because we have neighbors that are very close to us that are in lots of distress, and we'd like to know exactly how quickly and who and what will be done. So we look forward to Charlie's presentation, and we look forward to cleaning this up. And we do commend you for devoting all this money and effort and focus on this project. But we just want to make sure all aspects of it are served. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on item number 49? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment. Commissioner Benak?
So we're going to hear a presentation from Charlie on the next item is because we.
After we present.
Okay.
I mean, we have a motion. We have to vote.
Madam Chair, before we vote,
Commissioner Whitmore?
I was asked, I didn't know if Ed was bringing it up or I was, but there is, John Bain is here from Cortez, that you all have received a letter. I don't know if that's part of 49 or is that part of 53? But I'm asking the board.
I think that would be part of 53, more of the report.
53, okay. I just want to make sure before I,
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Johnson, I think seconded by Commissioner Ball. All those in
There is
favor?
no 53.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Up here.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. All right.
Bob?
Okay. Aye.
I'm dying to hear this.
But we need these questions, some of these questions.
So where are we now?
53.
Presentation.
3.
Did Charlie get a copy of this letter?
Yes, he did. Or he said he did.
Good luck.
Just checking my up-to-date information, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Charlie Hunsicker, and I'm here to report some of the good things that we've been doing.
Thank you.
And I'm here to talk about what Mayor John Chappie just mentioned. First and foremost, we have, as a government, taken responsibility for our Gulf-facing beaches. We have, as a government, been deploying 4 to 8 individuals every day, Monday through Sunday, out there cleaning the Gulf side beaches, sometimes with 3 and 4 passes a day on beach breaks. The results are clear. On the Anna Maria side of the Gulf, I believe this county, among its peers, is doing more than anybody to keep our famous sandy white beaches sandy white. We cannot stop the effects of Mother Nature on our beaches, but we certainly can do our best effort to clean them up because we have the mechanical equipment to operate on a dry, sandy shore, ones that have been tailored, engineered, and worked through for decades to do just this job. And where we can get that access, the equipment does its job. And then the people behind it who have to bag it, dispose of it, treat the containers for odor and anything else that's coming through the containers. And we're all working that way to do our work on the beaches and at our boat ramps, at Kingfish and Kikina South, Kikina North, and wherever that fish may occur on our public places. There's been, as you recall, over the last 2 weeks, and in a press conference that we held last week, we have moved to secure the sources of an emergency response firm to help us address the accumulating fish in our bay areas, in our canals, and along our shore. This is the same level of effort and response that we have taken when we have storm emergencies and when there's debris that has clogged the roads and made it unsafe or unsanitary to exist. And so we've worked hard to find the right company to provide this service. We had several choices. We had the company that provided the services during the hurricane for trash and debris removal on the land that has a marine capability. We chose a company that has also given us guidance over the many decades on our beach renourishment program, a company that we've come to trust in terms of looking out for the best interest of the county and the taxpayer dollars and the regulations that accompany it when doing the work. We have and continue to have great confidence in that company to do what's right for the taxpayers. The health department is here, and they have also helped us to monitor the situation relative to our beaches and shores. The property management department is leading the charge on the Gulf. The contractor is leading the charge in our back bay and backwater areas. We are working with a grant assurance from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection that they are there to support the current effort with funding necessary to do what we can to address this problem. We will be working this week to cement or tie down approximately a $750,000 grant from DEP to, at this point, fully fund contractor response. I think a light, also a shining light of folks who have asked what they can do individually. We're going to have a volunteer effort tomorrow, reporting to the causeway, Palmasoda Causeway, where accumulated fish, slight as it might be, has created the same kind of odors you encountered trying to drive to the beach. I think we're mobilizing there at 7:30, and we're only going to work a short time because we know that these conditions are tough. There's no mistaking the fact that they are terrible conditions in some locations with the odor and decay of the marine life that has been affected by the red tide. But it starts at the community level. And I'm very impressed that we have 20 to 30 volunteers who have already committed to show up. And when you say, what can I do? That's what we can all do. Not only there on the causeway, but out on the beaches and around our boat ramps. The public places where you're not trespassing on private property, but you're there to help the public good. But there are so many fish. In our back bay areas, the contractor right now is working with 3 collection boats. And those boats are working on the water at all times. Then there is a collection boat that goes between the 3 pickup boats. And that collection boat takes that load from the holds of those 3 collection boats to the shore, transferred to a dumpster. Dumpster takes it to the landfill. It's a very simple and straightforward process. Manual labor, very intensive. I think to summarize how we chose this contractor because we have high faith in the company to provide the right work. The means and methods that this contractor has chosen to address the problem is something we continue to evaluate. We only started yesterday afternoon, in truth. And we're going to work through the end of this week to assess the effectiveness of the number of boats, the manner of the pickup, and the effectiveness against the onslaught of floating fish that remain in Sarasota Bay and in the surrounding Gulf waters. I try to tell a few folks that imagine in a hurricane that passes through this area, like Hurricane Irma, it left a tremendous amount of debris on the roads and in the yards and the lawns. And we undertook to clear the debris from the right-of-way over a multiple month period of time till we finally removed the last branch from the right-of-way. Imagine now for a moment if that hurricane never stopped, if it continued to blow day in and day out, that you had cleaned that first initial effort and the hurricane was still on you, continuing to drop debris daily. For that matter, and moving it around. One day it appears on one street and the next day it's not there and it's on the street next to you. These are the logistics we face in this on-water cleanup. It's a more difficult task than addressing a single storm event. I think, and we have to, again, manage our expectations of how long this problem will be with us. I'm going to quote Bob Harrington last night on Channel 7, doing some research that he had said over the air. He said there was incidents in the mid-50s that lasted 2 years in this area. And I think the conventional wisdom here is that we need to stir up the Gulf like a washing machine to perhaps dissipate the overriding concentration effect of red tide that feeds on itself and continues to grow and blossom in a horrendous expansion. And we're not going to wish for a tropical storm in this area. We're not. But it may take a big storm with a lot of wind to move the water around and see the dissipation. But that kind of a prediction is something only Mother Nature can make. I want to go to the last question on this chart before I answer the first one. And it's pretty clear. It says, will the county accept responsibility for the entire cleanup, regardless of who does it and how long it takes? And my answer to that is only Mother Nature has and will accept such a responsibility. So let's go to some of the questions that are relevant to the performance of the contractor out here. And I want to thank the Wild Oak Bay folks who have put these together, cogent and tight. What is the timeline for these boats to reach the hard-hit residential neighborhoods in Bayshore Gardens, Wild Oak Bay, El Conquistador, and Coral Shores? You see the pattern there? Those are the neighborhoods on the Cortez Peninsula that are receiving that west to east wind and blowing in on shore throughout Sarasota Bay. And a response to that is sometime in the next 2 weeks. The contractor works best by keeping the collection boats in one area so that the pickup boat can get there and service them back and forth. If we have the collection boats in 5 different neighborhoods, that's a lot of time spent from one boat to the next to get it back on shore. You say, why don't we get more boats? We can. We can assess whether or not that technique is effective and efficient, and we can reevaluate that. We don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So we will assess, but we need a little bit more time, days, to see how we're working through it and what's the best approach to take. Second question, how many boats are being used and where are they from? 3 boats. Where are they from? Not sure that makes a difference, but there was a Louisiana crew that set them up on Sunday and early Monday morning. People say, well, they're not from Florida. I don't know if that matters, but I can tell you the crews today are from Florida. And I don't know if that matters. But the fact is, the boats are on the water, and they're working with a 3-man crew, each of them. maybe there's a thought of, well, if they knew the Florida Bay and they knew the Florida environment, they could tell us, they could get into those flats and they could do a better job because they're used to this area. That might be so. But it doesn't take long to get a quick training on how to approach a problem in the water. Can these boats get inside the long bar in the shallow areas where they're accumulated? They made it over the sandbar and now they're in the low spots in waters less than 2 feet deep. And the answer is these boats have a 2-foot draft. So the answer is no, they can't get in. If these boats can't navigate shallow waters, why were they hired? They were hired to address the floating mats of fish that are resplendent through Sarasota Bay and in the Back Bay areas. Some of our area of overflights, I mean, for those who haven't been there are rafts of floating fish, maybe 40, 50 feet wide, that persist for over a mile down the bay, all the way to Ringling and back again. And in waves, like sand dunes moving across the desert floor, these fish continue to roll in. Some say, well, the worst is behind us because, you only kill so many, huh? But the red tide is always there. The storm is never ending. Will the boats pull fish off the many small beaches and along the shore? Or will they just pick up fish floating in the water? Right now, the means and methods of this contractor is to pick up floating fish. Nobody gets out of the boat to walk through a mud flat, or into the roots of any mangrove to pluck, pull, and bag. That's not the scope of work that we're following now. Now, if these boats can't do that work, will the county subcontract the Cortez chapter of Organized Fishermen of Florida, whose shallow draft boats can do the job and have already helped on the islands? If not, why not? Well, I spoke to the company this morning. Yes, they will hire subcontractors, such as fishermen in Florida, under conditions, like any business, like any company. Here's some protocol. Number one, they have to provide a health and safety plan to the company that meets the company requirements. Number two, they have to meet the insurance requirements set by the state of Florida, who is giving us the grant to do the cleanup. And number three, Aptum has a standard agreement to sign. And when most subcontractors receive the agreement to sign on the dotted line, there's a negotiation that takes place. Well, what if I do this, and how about if I do that? And it's been their experience, this company's experience, that finishing through those negotiations takes about a week. It's not something they can recruit tomorrow, like the draft, sign up and join. It takes a while to work through those agreements. But I think it's important to state that the company is not averse to bringing in the additional help for those who can meet the requirements. They haven't said no. If the neighborhoods, and sympathy is not the word. This is a marathon. The odor is bad. It's pervasive through US 41. The neighborhoods are suffering. Our own employees suffer when they're out there working these problems. But the neighborhoods cannot afford to wait past this week to clear the shores and hire the organized Florida fishermen themselves. Will the county reimburse the neighborhoods from these funds? From the grant funds received from the state of Florida? We cannot. If neighborhoods hire private contractors because your subcontractor will be too slow, will the county reimburse the neighborhoods from these funds? From the grant funds of the state of Florida? No, we cannot. The grant clearly says we have to follow a procurement method adopted through ordinance by the Board of County Commissioners to competitively secure and obtain the services. And then finally, will the county accept responsibility? Your staff has accepted a great responsibility to operate day in and day out with good results in many, many areas. And we will continue to accept those responsibilities. We'll be there till it's over. But given the continuing loading of fish and marine life that is affected by the red tide, that as of today is still there. Tomorrow it will still be there. And it's to anyone who could predict whether it might linger. It's simply not possible. But there is a load of floating fish that will continue to come ashore, although sink to the bottom. And without preaching, and I think I am, apologize, but we're going to see the end of this episode, like we always do. For the decades and centuries behind us and the decades coming forward, there will be an end to this episode. We'll be celebrating the quality of Sarasota Bay. We'll be enjoying our beaches, and we'll be back in business. It will come to an end. And we simply have to pray that that end comes quickly.
Commissioner Ball.
Imagine District 5 going first on this topic. Charlie, I just want to make sure I understand a few things here. Number one, are we the only county that, right now, that is actually doing this?
No. Fort Myers, Lee County has been actively engaged since probably November of last year in
Because it
making an
hit
effort.
them way before it did us, correct? Yeah.
I
But
want
here,
to say this is the first. I'm sorry to interrupt. This is the first time in my memory, working here in Manatee County, that we've ever engaged an effort to clean anything but the Gulf Shore of Anna Maria Island.
that was
The
my
first
next
time.
question. Yeah. Okay, so the counties that are bordering Manatee County, any of those doing it?
No.
I
Sarasota.
want it on
again-
record, Charlie.
Again, as of today, Sarasota County is cleaning their beaches.
As of today.
Well, the information I have as of today, Sarasota County are cleaning their beaches. I don't know what Charlotte County is doing.
Okay.
They don't have, many of them are private beaches, as you know, Minnesota Key and the Keys to the south. That's my answer. Then the red tide hasn't made it north into Tampa Bay.
Right.
Thank goodness for us. Not even really at the northern tip of Anna Maria Island. I'm still not seeing it back in the canals in the city of Anna Maria or even Holmes Beach. For us, the worst is on the southern shore of Sarasota Bay in Manatee County.
And, when we were briefed on, we get briefings almost every day on this red tide issue. And, I'm sure that all the commissioners, even though we really couldn't discuss it because we weren't in a meeting, we all agreed that we needed to do the best we could to try and help. In a situation like this, it reminds me of Hurricane Irma. And, because as you said, though, this is not just going to go away. It's not just a storm going through and that's going to be the end of it. This is something that's going to be prolonged. We don't know how long. And it is what it is. So, but it does remind me of how in a storm such as Irma, the community all comes together, works together to try and help each other. And Manatee County has, in my opinion, for what we're doing today, we should be doing this, and I think it's the right thing to do. But in all fairness, Manatee County is doing it not because we have to, but because we just want to try and help. And we expect and we know that the majority of residents that are suffering through this right now will come out and help as well. This is not something the county can take on by themselves, just like any major hurricane that goes through. We can't do everything there either. So it is something where, we expect the residents that are being going through this, we expect them to come and help this situation as well. Anybody that owns a boat needs to be out there helping to clean up this issue the best they can. And I think a lot of them are, and I expect no less, because that's how we are in Manatee County. That's what we do.
The Brits did it in Dunkirk, and so can we.
Exactly. So I think when I, just received some of these questions, I'm just amazed that we're being asked some of these questions, because obviously we cannot accept responsibility for Mother Nature not knowing what she's going to do. It is a Manatee County quote-unquote problem. No matter where you live in Manatee County, we all need to be helping in this situation. And I think we're seeing that. To ask Manatee to be responsible for the entire cleanup and to reimburse residents. You know, it sounds wonderful, and gee, I wish we could, but it's not reasonable. It's not something that can take place. And my heart goes out to the commissioners, you know, the two at large and Commissioner Johnson, because I know this is very, very difficult, more so for them than for me out east, you know, but we're all concerned about what's taking place. So, you know, I think it should be said that we're doing this not because we have to, but because we want to. We're trying to be good stewards of Manatee County. We're doing the best we can. And I think we realize how serious this issue is, and that's why we're really hitting the canals and everything like we're doing to try and help as much as we can. But I think people need to realize that there's only so much really that we can do as a county, you know, to offset this. I mean, I know our staff in Manatee has been working this now, Charlie, how long?
For approximately 2 weeks.
Yeah.
As it became serious here in Manatee.
And I'll tell you one more thing. This commissioner is really getting tired of seeing the Bradenton Herald's front page with nothing but dead fish on it. You know, staff is out there working their buns off every day, making sure our beaches are clean, and I don't recall seeing a picture of our beach being clean. And I think, you know, if the media wants something, and I know they're in here full force this morning on this issue, but I really think they need to look at what staff has done so far to try and help this situation and show some clean beaches, because Manatee County is in the forefront of this, doing the best they can with a very difficult situation. The EOC, you know, doing everything they possibly can. And I would love to see something in the press about the great job that our staff in Manatee County and volunteers of Manatee County and other counties, what we're doing to try and offset the problem to make sure our residents can walk on our beaches and it be clean and nice. So I think I've preached to the choir. I know we all think that, but sometimes it's just aggravating when I know everybody's working so hard and no one seems to notice. Thank you, Charlie.
You also asked what's being done in other communities. I can guarantee this. There's meetings just like this taking place in every county so affected. And I think there was a coverage of a meeting in Venice where residents were frustrated. They wanted to know who had caused this and what we were going to be doing to correct it. And those questions are going to be with us they've been with us in the decades in our past, and they'll be with us in the decades to come. We can work along our shorelines to minimize the continued feeding of the red tide with excess nutrients. I remember Dr. Crosby, the director of Molt Marine Laboratory, said his wife and he had made a pact among themselves. They were no longer going to apply fertilizer to the lawn. They just said that. One individual effort. But for those of us, you know, we have met the enemy, and we are us. They are us. Because we do contribute, because we live here. This is a part of our.
That's right.
If we didn't live here, we'd still have the problem on the shore. But you know, someone along the line for the last century has brought in almost 1 million people, 2 million people along these shores, and we love it here. And the outcome of that is sometimes the effects of our living here have a great effect on the delivery of fertilizers and nutrients to the environment. And red tide, as a natural occurrence, loves that food.
Charlie, I have one more question too. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know, red tide's not new to the coastlines of Florida.
No.
I mean, it happens almost every year, you know, somewhere on the coastline of Florida. And if I'm not mistaken, and I didn't live here then, but from what I have gathered in trying to do some research, we had one back in the 60s that was about probably as close to this as what I can come up with. So, you know, I love hearing people, you know, well, you know, we've caused this, we're causing this, oh, the sugar caused this, the politicians have caused this. It is a natural thing, as you just said, that happens here really on the coast of Florida somewhere almost every year. I mean, it's not uncommon. So, you know, what has been, have we had one here in Manatee County that really shows to be probably as bad as this one is? I believe maybe the 60s, I bet you know.
Yes, we have. And I'm going to say again that the red tide organism, the Latin name that I can never pronounce,
Marinas, yeah.
is in the water at all times. And it's everyone who took a biology course in high school or some other location understand the population dynamics when a population has a explosion. There's a peaking and a drop off, and that's what we see. But it's not like red tide falls from the sky. That organism is always in the Gulf, in the deep waters, in the shallow waters. And when temperature and food and currents and bottom flows conspire to bring it together, and it starts feeding on itself, and the dead fish it creates, and the nutrients in the water column, you get a simple biological reaction that's guaranteed to happen every time.
Thank you, Charlie.
Commissioner Whitmore.
I serve on the West Coast Inland Management District, and last Friday I was in Venice at the meeting, and the Sarasota County Commissioner was there, and the Charlotte County, Lee didn't make it. They are not doing what we are doing in the backwaters. They are cleaning their beaches. Some of them, if they have a beach renourishment, they're under the permit. It didn't even sound like they were doing that much of that in Charlotte County, but they said, I told them that we were, they said, oh, we're hearing gossip, or that there's fishermen that are gonna help, and our local fishermen actually had helped the city of Anna Maria a few weeks ago, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to get it work since. So if people in Wild Bay wanna hire them for the fishes that we can't get, I'm sure they would be loving it because they can't make a living today. But they are not doing the inside Sarasota Bay area or along the intercoastal. They're only doing the beaches that have the beach renourishment permits. I have a question. It said that in order for us to be able to receive any monies to get paid back for the cleanup, we're under the auspices of the FDEP and their permit. So if the organized fishermen of Florida have that information to give, to apply to the agency that we've hired that meet all those qualifications, then they can work, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The company says we're willing to hire subcontractors on the conditions of a public safety plan, insurance, and agreement to the contract that we have for subcontractors.
Okay, because this organization actually has a permit with FWC to clean crab traps and other things like this that they've been working with the state. So this would probably be the organization that needs to apply and then get the help if they need it, but it would be under those auspices, because they've got the insurances and they work with FWC, probably, correct? But that's up to the organization, right? But we have to make sure that they follow DEP's rules and guidelines in order for us to be able to pay them or pay the company that will pay them.
In order for us to pay our contractor.
Right, they'll pay them.
So that they may reimburse any subcontractor they choose.
Okay, just wanted to make it clear. And is contact information, how would these people get a hold of the company? Is that on our hotline?
We can make that available.
Could you?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at Stuart's questions, and I think basically, you obviously answered them all no. So that's not a big surprise per se.
No,
but
not all of them, no.
The thing that I think, I think we've all read ad nauseum from the papers. This is a natural occurring event. It will go away. But unfortunately, at this point, the citizens, are looking for some assistance, and I think maybe the way to go about it is, as we touched on, volunteers, and maybe we can facilitate them to help them. The people I've talked to, especially in a lot of these canals, Coral Shores being one of them, are saying, hey, if you just help us put a dumpster, we're all got boats, we all got nets, we'll go out there and, scoop them up and throw them into the dumpster if you'll provide it and haul it away for us, type of thing. And I think the same, could be true at Wild Oak Bay. I mean, again, you can't get into the mangroves, but they've got some, beach areas that if we could sit there and provide them with the dumpster, they could put a group together and, pick it up themselves and throw it in the dumpster. I mean, if we're going to sit here, you're telling me we're going to clean up the city of Bradenton's Palmasola, this weekend with volunteers. I'm like, well, where's the city of Bradenton on this? Why don't we take those volunteers and send them to our, our areas that need the help? type of
They
thing.
were actually,
So, I mean, that's, to me, I understand, and I agree with a lot of the answers to your questions. I know we can't take on the liability, and we shouldn't. We're doing a lot more than the other counties are doing. But I think I think the message we need to put out to the people that are, most affected from Bowley's Creek out through, Cortez, that, if you can put some volunteer groups together in your different HOAs and things like that, we'll help you. We'll facilitate that because obviously the big thing is getting those fish to the dump at some point, and they can keep doing it because I think from everything I've read, this red tide isn't going to subside. The fact that we're cleaning it out today, tomorrow it's liable to be chock full of it, and we've allocated up to 500,000. Well, that's that could double and triple if it keeps going. So I think the quicker we can sit there and try to mobilize some of these people from a volunteer standpoint to go out there, but we've got to provide them with the way to get rid of the fish after they scoop it out of the canal. And I'm just making that's just my recommendation. We go out, hire, rent some dumpsters and try to work with some of these people, the HOAs, and say, hey, tell us where to put it, and we'll come by and pick it up.
Commissioner, the deployment of dumpsters on public property is something we have already done. And that doesn't answer your question, but I just want to point that out for the record. We do have public dumpsters, and the dumpster king here, Carmine's right with
dumpster king.
And
he's been on this for 2 weeks.
And I might add that Carmine recently received well-deserved ACE recognition with the ACE medal, and by his staff, his colleagues, and Ed Hunsaker for the work that he has been doing day in and day out in this effort. And the coveted ACE coin went to Carmine this last week.
Congratulations.
Manatee Beach, but the dumpsters right now in the public, Manatee Beach, Kingfish Boat Ramp, Bayfront Park, Kekina North Boat Ramp, Kekina South Boat Ramp, Kekina South Golf Side, Longboat Key Boat Ramp on the golf side, and the Palmsilla Causeway. But then we say, well, what about Wild Oak Bay? There's a place that we can put on a public street, put the dumpster there. And so there are considerations that come into that. The safe traffic of movement in and around a dumpster placed even on the roadside like a parked car, number one. Number two, we've learned that dumpsters don't necessarily totally contain a 5-day-old decayed fish within the lines. We've placed sand at the bottom of the dumpster. We've treated it with lime. We've placed sand around the dumpster because there's going to be leakage. These containers are not watertight, I believe. Right. And so you can imagine which homeowner's property are we going to place the dumpster out front of on the street? Because there is no public pullover or little park. Yeah. And each Wild Oak Bay, Coral Shores, yes, those are all public road rights-of-way, and we would have the ability to place such a container there. But we have to be concerned about each individual neighborhood will say, does it have to be here? Maybe the homeowners association can take a vote and say it will be this property because perhaps they're seasonal residents and would like to do it there.
They're not
but
there.
we could. I mean, there. Certainly there are ways, but you can imagine the questions or the considerations that have to go into the decision where to place such a dumpster, and then the agreement. Again, the county is stepping up through these funds for the rental cost of the dumpster. Certainly be reimbursed and everything. Go ahead.
Yeah, Charlie Bishop, Property Management Director. I'd like Carmine to step forward. We have been working with homeowners associations, and we have been placing dumpsters, or we're getting ready to put those dumpsters at locations. Carmine, you want to?
Yes, we have stepped it up in the areas we did meet with Bayshore Gardens and Trailer Estates HOAs yesterday. Very helpful, very appreciative. We did secure locations that were effective, efficient, and safety conscious. So some of the other areas that we visited, it was just, it wasn't really safe for the entire community itself. So right now we're securing, they're en route to put 10-yard dumpsters at Trailer Estates and Bayshore Gardens, and there's also a 30-yarder out at Bowley's Creek area as well.
With that said, Commissioner, we're more than willing, if any homeowner association wants to step forward and work with us, would be willing to work with that community to place a dumpster there.
That's clear. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. You know, I've got a meeting tonight with the Coral Shores people, and
They got a dumpster.
they've been talking several times about, hey, you can put it here. You know, it's a two-lane road, type of thing. So it'd be nice to pass that on, let them get in touch with you all and see if you can find a place that's mutually acceptable from a safety standpoint, as well as giving them the help that they need. And maybe Stuart, you and the folks at Wild Oak Bay can, take a look around there and see if there's some place that, you can squeeze one in there and, type of thing.
Take it
And,
out, right.
because I think all the people that are in the associations, obviously it's to their benefit. So if the road gets blocked off a little bit for the next couple of weeks and they got to go east instead of west, I'm sure they'll be willing to spend another couple minutes trucking through the subdivision, to get them some relief, at least something that just shows us that we're trying to be proactive on this, but we know we've got our hands tied in a lot of respects as to what we can do, and the fact that it's going to keep on coming is my concern.
Sure, and I appreciate that, Commissioner, and we're here to help. The issues that we don't want is we don't want to go in and drop off roll-off containers and then 10 minutes later have to go and remove it because we have some angry residents. That's what we don't want.
Good idea.
So we're here to help.
All right, Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, I mean, this is unprecedented. I mean, I think we all need to recognize that this is unprecedented. I'm sure there have been other red tide events. I can remember them. I wasn't an elected official back then, and it was different. I went to the beach, experienced red tide, and said, boy, I'm out of here. I'm not going to deal with this. Very different experience. But I'm very encouraged by the outrage, quite frankly, by the citizens. What's causing this? How can we slow it down? I'm very encouraged by the response by Moat Marine, being willing to take this on. I'm encouraged by the state's response so far to fund Moat Marine and help us with funding. We've been told that. But the proof is going to be in the pudding and what we do. And this is a public health issue. When as you said, not all communities are responding the same. I saw a report on ABC 7 about what was happening on a beach south of us that is covered with maggots.
Because of the dead fish.
I know, it was horrific. And I will not say the name.
Oh, I just did.
Because
I didn't hear it.
I wouldn't go to that beach. I would not. And I did take it upon myself, being a good Manatee Countian, to go out to the beach on Saturday and Sunday to see what it was like. Saturday, sat out on the deck at the beach house. It was nice. There was a wedding going on the beach. I felt for those people because the smell of dead fish was very evident. Sunday, I went to Manatee Beach. I went out to the pier. No problems. Anna Marie Island, there was no problem on the pier. I was shocked because I had heard otherwise. It just depends on which way the wind is blowing.
Exactly.
And so we are at the mercy of Mother Nature here. I actually went in the water. It was kind of aqua-ish again. There were patches at Manatee Beach, but I actually went in the water on Sunday at Manatee Beach. As usual, this time of year it doesn't cool you off much, but and I did see just a few floating fish. But again, it is going to change. There are going to be changes. I think that we need to stay on top of it, but we have to recognize that all these people that are doing this work had jobs. They had assignments. We don't have unlimited resources to apply to this issue. And this is tough work. I was going to ask whether or not we could have, any of our prison work teams go out and do it. Because I picture out at Long Bar, I picture out there people waiting, collecting these fish because it's so shallow. I mean, you can get out there in your kayak, but I'm not strong enough to tow anything behind my kayak. So you're going to have to be in waders. People are going to have to be out there. I don't even know if you need waders. I guess you could just walk out there. But I don't know. We looked at that, whether or not there's any opportunity to get work crews out of our prison population. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, we've been doing that.
We have exactly that. We've had deployments from the sheriff's office And we've also had deployments from one of the trustee groups that we have with Hardy Correctional that works with our Natural Resources Department out there on the beach also helping. I want to correct also thing, I said there was no federal funding, or recommended that. That's not true. I was mistaken, of course. The funding was secured through our local delegation, congressional delegation, with Congressman Buchanan leading the charge on that, to appropriate $8 million to the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency, NOAA, and they are dispersing funds through Florida. It wasn't an appropriation directed to MODE, but MODE is eligible and recipient, and will be a recipient of those federal funds for the continued research of the causes and lingering effects of the red tide.
I'm glad you said lingering effects, because I remember that, they had problems with the population finding enough fish to eat because we've had such a fish kill, and that was an issue before. So it is going to be long-term, and I do like the thought of helping the neighborhood associations take this on, volunteer efforts. I don't know if neighborhood services, I know they've been engaged as well, could help organize teams and try to put together the pieces for people to be successful. But my neighbor came up to me and said, "Isn't this amazing that everyone wants you to take care of this?" So it was kind of, and I agree, I don't live on the water. But to have, people are wondering, what is the role of local government in this? I think we are stepping way out above and beyond. I think the questions were excellent. I don't have any problem with the questions. I was going to ask what are the limitations, but because the questions were so well worded, we went through all of that. But I think, we're going to do what we can, but we are not in charge of Mother Nature. We cannot solve this problem, but it is a public health issue, and we're going to respond the best we can. So keep us informed, and we'll just continue keep working on it. I think we all have to work together on this.
And I mentioned to the administrator that we're going to be doing that assessment on Friday to determine whether or not the means and methods, which is a state-of-the-art in contracting, is sufficient to make a difference and to have an effect. And we'll make that assessment then.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Thank you, Charlie, and I wanted to thank Ed and administration and staff for calling the press conference on Friday, and I think Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Whitmore were there as well. And we really are stepping up, and like everyone says, we're going above and beyond, just like we did at Irma, and kind of like going through Irma, where we were really appreciative when we saw those trucks coming out from other places to help us with the electrical problems and that sort of thing. So, it's a whole community, and if one truck isn't from this area, if it's from Georgia, whatever, but they're an expert in this, then, I recognize that. And thank you for meeting with Bayshore Gardens and folks from Trailer Estates, and I think you met some folks from Bowley's in Whitfield. And so I know that you're starting there, and I really appreciate that. But if there's any, lingering, you can't get every single one under a dock and that sort of thing. So I was just wondering if, when we have those, the groups of Keep Manatee Beautiful, where they clean up the roadways, if they can mobilize?
We've made inquiries, but
Okay.
they haven't
They have
fully
volunteers.
responded
Oh.
yet.
Okay.
So we're working with that
So,
as
because
well.
they have volunteer groups that they give them bags and they give them the little clippers and, so hopefully maybe some people that are in different Keep Manatee Beautiful groups can,
Yes,
can
we're,
rise up and-
we're working with them, and we're going to hope to mobilize their assistance as well.
okay. And what else was I going to say? Just everybody, just work with us. The questions were good questions, but I know if I was fortunate enough to live on a canal, which I'm not, but I would be out there trying to get as much. I'd get big net and get big bags and try to help out as much as I can, but not everybody is able to do that. A lot of people would need a respirator to do that. But, if the neighborhoods can get together and, band together and help this out and, you know, and afterwards, you know, have a big pizza party or whatever afterwards and just fish fry. No, not fish fry. Not a fish fry, pizza. And, you know, bring some beer and some pretzels and some soda and have a good time. So that's all. Thank you.
Way to go, Mr. Hunsaker.
Commissioner, what I did want to say one thing also in the appreciation that it needs to be offered. There are your staff right now are stepping away from their daily job, some of them, and there's manning the Citizens Call-In Center as volunteers, and over the weekend even. And I want to expressly thank them for with their help, we are coalescing where the hot spots are on the basis of where the calls are coming in. So short of having daily overflights, airplane or helicopter, this is the way we can get our information. This is the way we can prioritize our work. And it's very, very helpful for us, and the call-in center has done that job. I do say last Saturday, the sheriff's office brought us up for a 3-hour reconnaissance with the sheriff's helicopter. That gave us the first look at the total extent of the problem. And without that help, we would have been hours and days on the water with boats trying to chase down the hot spots. So I want my thanks go out to the sheriff for his help over Saturday. But the folks who continue to work with us, have the patience, and work through our call-in center, it's very, very helpful for us because we're taking those calls, we're plotting them on our maps, and deciding each night where to prioritize the next response on the basis of the collection of activity. So there is a work plan going on using data, using citizen information of where the problems are the worst, and we're trying to work those areas, but thank you.
Mr. Hunsaker.
Madam Chair, I want to thank Charlie and Carmine for their efforts, but the effort that you see from those two is only a tip of the iceberg. What we have is the entire organization focused on this problem. It's taking people away from their normal jobs, but they understand the magnitude of the issue. And as Charlie indicated earlier, the problem just keeps on coming. Commissioner Bedak identified that this is unprecedented in current times, the magnitude of the problem. And what we're going to do is we'll keep you informed as we move along as to how much we're spending. The challenge when you think down the road, I don't want to be in a position where we've spent the last dollar and the problem just keeps on coming. There is a finite amount of money available for these, and we're trying to get as much as we could out of the state and the federal government. But there is a limit, and we have no idea how long this problem will persist. We will do our best, because we've never done this before, to do what we're doing in the backwaters of Manatee. But the challenge still lies ahead. As you remember with Irma, the day after the storm, everybody wanted their neighborhood first. Exactly. And it took us from September to December to finish. This is not quite that level yet, but every bay, every inland waterway that has a fish, people are going to want us to be there to get that fish. We need partners. We've got a contractor, but the cost is significant. And we should keep you informed as we move on, because at some point in time, we may just need to step back and let Mother Nature do her thing, and then come at this again. Because in talking to Charlie early this morning, the fish are coming in faster perhaps than we can pick them up today. It's just a function of the winds, as you indicated earlier, and there was a strong westerly wind yesterday, sea breeze coming in, that brought many more fish in. This is an ongoing challenge. As indicated by one of you earlier, this is a marathon. We can't run it like a sprint. It's a marathon. We have to be prepared to be in this for the long haul. But we will keep you informed and the community informed of how we're doing and how much we're spending, and how we're going to make those two work. Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore, then we're moving on.
I asked, well, that's why I was push my button. There's two actions we have to take, and also I've sent. Everybody has a copy of a letter that John Banas from Cortez would like for the board to consider. So should we approve the first two, and then then we can talk about his issue next?
Let's get through 53.
And, well, you said he was part of 53, so I want to make sure that after we vote on the first two, then he can come up. Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we approve authorization to execute and submit FDEP protection grant agreement for red tide management for and within Manatee County.
Second.
All right, we have, this is number 53. Anyone from the public wish to speak on item number 53? Yes, sir. Come down, state your name.
The other part.
Sir?
Who's speaking?
Someone raised his hand, said he wanted to
Oh,
come
he's
forward.
out, he's Johnny Banas, he's coming after, sorry.
After this, all right.
Sorry.
So anyone from the public wish to speak on item number 53? On the
Madam Chairman,
amendment motion?
is that a complete motion, reading from the
There's two
action requested?
motions. We have a budget amendment.
All right. All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Whitmore, seconded by Commissioner somebody.
I think it
Ball,
was.
thank you.
yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the budget resolution B 18102, amending the annual budget for Manatee County, Florida for fiscal year 2018.
Second.
Okay, anyone from the public wish to speak on the budget amendment? Seeing no one come forward, I have a motion made by Commissioner Whitmore, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion passes. All right, Commissioner Whitmore.
We have a gentleman that's here, I think a fifth-generation Cortesian. He owns Cortez, the fish house in Cortez. I think there's two in there. He also owns Cortez Kitchen Swordfish, and he has a retail strip mall in Cortez that sells seafood. He's come up with a creative way that hopefully we can maybe catch some of these fish before they swim through the red tide. And he knows that he's going to have to go through the state and do all this himself, but he would like to have the support of Manatee County Commission. I'd like to ask him up if it's okay.
Yes, sir.
John, come on up. Just give a little bit about, you're probably riffing because you know the red tide probably better than all of us.
You need to state your name.
Great. I'm John Banyas with Cortez Bait and Seafood, and I appreciate your time to hear me out. What I'm looking for is a letter of support for Manatee County to have a temporary emergency permit to harvest mullet during red tide within a 5-mile radius with a mesh size over 2 inch. I've talked to a lot of FWC people, and they're willing to participate and willing to help out. I have a lot of, I've worked with the FWC in the past to catch redfish, tag redfish for 7, 8, 10 years, so I have a working relationship with the FWC. But what I would like to do is kind of nip it in the tail a little bit, so to speak. If we could utilize the fish before it dies, if we could harvest it, catch the fish when it's prone to be in a red tide area, and we know it's going to die within the next day or 2 days, why can't we harvest this fish, utilize it, have some economic impact for the fisheries and the fish houses to utilize the fish before it dies? This way, we don't have to worry about the cleanup on the beaches and raking the beaches. So if we could get a percentage of the fish before they die, well, why wouldn't we want to do that? And that's what I'm here to propose to you. If I could just get a letter of support from Manatee County, then I would still have a long way to go to present it to the FWC Commission to allow me an emergency permit to use a mesh size greater than 2 inch, which would allow to catch these fish before they die, especially in the Coral Shores area. You know, all these areas that are close to us where a lot of these fish, if you see them floating, it looks like 50% of them are mullet, and that's our fishery. And when this passes and the smell goes away, our fish aren't alive. I don't get a chance to, when the smell goes away, the tourists come back, the hotels fill up, the restaurants are full. Well, the fish have already died. Our mullet season coming up in the future for this coming up season, they're dead. That's not going to come back this year. It might take a year or two, and It's something that's not going to rebound as quick as the restaurants and the hotels as soon as the tourists come back and the smell goes away. So we really need to utilize the fish before they die, and this is a good way to do it. If I could just get a bigger mash size and try to catch the fish before they die, the fishermen are staying busy, the fish houses are staying busy, the employees are staying busy. So I'm looking to do that. I have a long way to go with it because I just can't go out there and do it. So I'm just looking for a letter of support to take to the commission of the FWC, and they could allow me a temporary emergency permit to be able to harvest just the commercial viable fish within a radius of the red tide, nothing outside it, just the ones that we know are going to die. I have met with a lot of people in the FWC, Matt Garrett, Sarah Bernstein, a lot of people that seem to be 100% supportive of the idea. So I really think I could get this, but in doing it, I need some support from the county, and it's a good place to start. So I just want to keep from wasting the resource. I don't want to take them to the dump. I'd rather take them to the freezer. I'd rather take them to the fish house. I'd rather have people work to utilize the fish that's before it dies.
There's some commissioners, I think they have some questions for you.
Okay.
Commissioner DeSabatino?
That's a really great idea, but are you planning to test the water samples that these fish that are in that sample are not contaminated, or?
Yes, I have.
Said they're going to die like the next day. Are they?
Yes. Well,
Have some level of contamination already?
within a couple days of the red tide being there. Usually when the fish dies, he's a lack of oxygen, but the fish is fine. You know, we catch them on a small basis ahead of the red tide now. They're living, they're breathing, they're fine for food consumption. It's just when they're died, they're no good.
Suffocate.
FWC, Matt Garrett, he's with the FWC. He's, willing to participate and actually take a sample and say, yes, this is the red tide infected area, and in fact, those fish are going to die. So he's willing to work with me. I just got to put all the pieces together to get the person in charge to be there and say, yes, this is an area within 5 miles of the red tide, and it's okay to harvest. I have some support from the Florida Senator, Bill Galvano, and some representatives that are willing to, pitch in on a letter of support also. Vern Bushman, they're willing to write a letter of support to try to get this done. So that's what I'm trying to do. I want to just keep from wasting the resource and,
Okay,
trying to get them utilized before they wash up on our beaches and our housing communities.
I
And
think we still have some more questions.
Thank you.
yes,
Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, I feel for you guys. You're going to suffer through this, and it's your livelihood, and we know that from our tourism industry as well. But the question is the long-term impacts for the fishermen, so it is a big deal. I do have a question because I'm not familiar with the rules of mullet fishing. So right now, you can go mullet fishing, but you have to use a certain net size.
Right.
And that limits your ability to cover a larger area? Is that the reason why
correct.
you're
We're
asking?
limited to a 500 square foot net, which is
Nothing.
really nothing that you can do with it, and it's a small mesh net, and the fish don't hit it, so it's not going to do any good to try to go catch 5 or 10 head here or there because it's not going to help solve any of the issues. It's on a broad basis. So with a temporary use permit, and I really think the commission of the FWC would agree to this because I've
want
worked
the
with them.
dead fish.
They're understanding people, and it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on with this. I think anybody would want to utilize a fish before it dies, rots, and ends up in somebody's canal or backyard.
And the FWC Act is the enforcers of the law. They don't make the laws, of course. And
Yes.
I'm just wondering, do they have the authority to give such an emergency permit?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ball?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to have our chairman sign a letter for this gentleman to take
Second.
to Fish and Wildlife.
All right, anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Seeing no one come forward, we have a motion made by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Whitmore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
When can we get Johnny
Thank you
this
very much.
letter?
She can sign it
Hold on,
right
'cause
now.
you're-
Okay.
You can sign
I
it
need a
right now.
fountain pen.
It's the original one.
I need a fountain pen.
You gotta get a
I
pen.
did not know she had that. That was not
No,
planned
that's
on my
kind of-
part. Did not know that.
I need a copy, right? She'll, John, she'll
Yes.
go around outside and give you the original.
All right. Now,
I want
number.
to thank you so much.
you.
I mean, everybody in the community is working so hard to do
Will you
something.
please
and-
tell Cortez you heard what we're going through? Because, I mean, we've got battle scars, and Betsy,
Yes.
we are trying to get them to work.
Yes.
You've heard the rules with DEP, the rules they got to follow.
Mhm.
And the private sector, they can do on their own, but we will try, and we'll deal with Toasty and all them to see if they
Yes.
can apply.
Yes, yes, and that would be great if they can get something out there and,
Good.
and help do that, and we
Thank
can,
you.
you know, keep some fish harvested and before they go to waste.
Right.
And do something that's just a piece of the puzzle, and also it would set precedents for the years to come. If FW already knows that we have a temporary or emergency permit in progress in the years coming, we can get to them before so many fish have already died. Like this year, maybe we can do some good, maybe we can't. But if we get something in place where they can have a chance to support that and they're aware of it, we can move forward on the next level. We
Need
just
to be
gotta.
prepared, learn from this experience.
Yes,
It's on to
yes.
your guys.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you very
So-
much, and
Thank
you,
good
John.
All right,
good
thank
luck
you
with
for your
FWC.
thanks for your help.
Thanks
She's
for trying to
outside,
help.
I think,
Yes,
for you.
thank you.
Okay.
Number
Thank you.
48. I think that's Jan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jan Brewer, Director of Financial Management. The item before you is the culmination of several items that we've gone through during our budget workshops. You have before you, we were requesting the issuance of the Public Utilities Revenue Improvement Bonds for the utility system 2018. With that, we came before you on June 12th, 2018, for the authorization to start the process. We are now at the point, we've come back before you to issue the Resolution R-18-135 and certain other documents in order to move forward with the issuance. We have gone through our rating reviews with Moody's and Fitch. At this time, Moody's has reaffirmed your AA1 rating, but Fitch has upgraded you to a AAA. In speaking with Fitch yesterday, she said it fit in nicely. You are now alongside of Hillsborough that also has a AAA rating, while Sarasota has the AA+. I do have with me here Wendell from Prague, who is our financial advisor. I'd really like to take this opportunity to let him to go through some items on this. Wendell is our Senior Managing Director of Prague, and Prague is an independent mutual advisor that has over 3 decades in experience in municipal finance. Wendell, if you'd like to come and talk a little bit about the issuance.
Sure, if you want me to walk through.
Sure.
Okay. Jan and her team has put together a little bit of information on the outstanding debt of the county, which you see here in front. I think most of your debt is with utilities, and you also have some debt with the port and then some general fund debt. You'll see a total of $380 million legally outstanding, but if you recall back in December, you did a crossover refunding of utility bonds, and under that structure, which we had to do for legal purposes, there's $60 million held in reserve that will be paying off that much in bonds in 2020. So your net outstanding total is $320 million? Can I advance this, or? That would be better. Particularly to the utilities bonds, you'll see the various issues that you have. The 2010 A's and B's are the ones that are primarily defeased. Funds are put aside for them. The balance of your bonds here. The last time the county issued new money bonds to improve the facility was a 2015 issue. So it's been about 3 years for new borrowings. The 2017 was a refunding. It saved about $3.6 million. That one was important because as tax law changed, we would not now be allowed to do that in advance. So you were able to move quickly last December and take advantage of those savings. And this is how your debt service currently looks. The orange is the existing debt. The blue would be the new issue. And I think the important thing there is because your debt, for the size of your system, your debt is relatively low, and it also matures relatively quickly. You'll see in 2021, there is a drop in your debt service. We're structuring this financing to push the principal back until that period. So we'll have interest for 3 years while you're doing the construction. Then we'll start paying principal back over a 30-year basis. And you'll see that will put you basically where you are for next fiscal year. The 18 number is a little bit deceptive. That didn't include the prior payments that were made in October. So basically, you're level for about the next 3 years. Then there's a drop. We're structuring to take advantage of that drop. The projects that are being financed here, it's about $75 million. Most of them are long-term improvements. The two biggest ones are improvements to the Lake Manatee Dam and the filtration membrane process. I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to say what the filtration membrane process is, other than the utility said the existing one you're replacing has been there for 50 years. So these are very long-term improvements. And then you'll see a number of improvements to various treatment facilities. The total cost of these projects is about is in excess of $140 million. So you're funding about half of it with debt and half of it with the revenues and funds of the system. So you do have a mix in your capital plan there. The issue that we're looking at here, as I said, it's about a 30-year issue. We plan to close the bonds in September. We estimate that the estimate here was about a 3.67% true interest cost. This was actually before we saw the upgrade. So we would expect that you would see some lower interest rates because of that upgrade. Reaching the AAA level is a very strong, very powerful point. As Jan said, the rating agencies really see the utility system as well managed, financially sound. You have good liquidity in that system, and you have good debt service coverage. For the size of the system, relatively small amounts of debt here. And as Jan said, your utility now, the Fitch rating is comparable to Hillsborough and better than Sarasota.
Good. We're competitive.
The bond market right now has been relatively stable. Long-term rates for the past 6 months really haven't changed that much. There's not a lot of new supply going into the market because issuers can't do advanced refundings, and a lot of people did what you did and tried to rush things last year. So you've got a system that is very highly rated. You were recently in the market and sold bonds as part of that refunding to save money, and the market is very stable. Because of that, we're actually recommending a different approach to selling your bonds this time than you've done in the past. And getting that AAA upgrade really helps that process. Typically, you've used what's called a negotiated process, where you hire an underwriter. They go out and market the bonds for you, and we negotiate the pricing based on their marketing process. The other type of structure that's common in the municipal bond is called a competitive sale. Those are for relatively straightforward credits when the market is relatively stable and there's a lot of demand for the bonds. In a competitive sale, we basically put the structure together, which you have here in front of you, and we advertise it to the entire municipal bond market. In this case, we're expecting that on the morning of September 6th we'll pick a time, say 10:30, we're going to accept bids from every underwriter. And whoever gives us the bid with the lowest true interest cost will be awarded those bonds. We think given the good news that you've got, given the market conditions, that's going to be a very, very efficient way to really award the bonds at a competitive basis to whoever gives you the best price. If you've got any questions,
Steve?
Commissioner Johnson.
Sorry. We all look at you. Steve?
Really some comments, I think, more than questions. Maybe they're questions, too. With this issuance of 75. I saw the county's not going on the hook for it, that it's, the utilities department is going to be solely responsible for the repayment of it, so I think that's good news. Given, our upgrade and our bond rating, would you like to venture a guess as to how much more debt we could incur at the county and maintain that AAA rating?
I haven't run through that analysis. I'm a little bit hesitant to go forward. And I think it's a valid point to really separate your county debt
Right.
from your utility debt, because they are totally separate. They're paid from separate sources. And the county doesn't have an obligation on the utility side. What the rating agencies, especially Fitch as part of their upgrade, they did recognize a similar financial strength in both. And they actually rate both the county and the utility the same. It's a catch-22 because you have capacity. If you so desired, you could issue more debt. One of the things that the rating agencies have liked about the county is that you have been very transparent, and you have laid out a plan of what you're doing, and you have followed that plan. This financing has been in your CIP for several years. When we did the refinancing in December, we told the rating agencies it was going to be coming this year. It's coming this year. We have told the rating agencies that there is no more debt in the adopted CIP for the utility going forward. However, the utility is looking at perhaps a relatively small amount, 3 or 4 years out, and we have looked at the capacity to handle that, have told the rating agencies, and they have factored that into their analysis. If we came back all of a sudden and said, no, wait, we're going to issue $100 million next year, I think you could perhaps handle it. I think you would raise the issue of, wait a second, this isn't the plan that you've laid out for us. So I'm not answering it perfectly. I'm just saying you aren't anticipating a lot of debt.
We still, you would believe we still have a lot of capacity at this point?
Yes.
That if we needed to raise more debt?
Yes, we would just want to show
based on
why
our
and how and
current
laid out.
reserves, our cash flow, et cetera, like that. And what would be the, if you drop from a AAA to like a AA1, basis points, what would the, what's the give up there just in the market right now?
Sure. And the Fitch thing came out this morning, so we haven't gone back and looked at analysis, but kind of a rule of thumb is that sort of notching is probably worth about 5 to 10 basis points.
Okay.
On a 30-year, $75 million financing, that is a lot of money.
And just finally, and I mentioned this to Ed yesterday, and I know it can't be part of the transaction, but, it would be nice and I think going through a competitive bid is much better avenue at this point than a negotiated bid, from a pricing standpoint. But it would be nice if, when this is done, because I don't know that it will come back to us per se, to at least talk to whoever the winning bidder is and maybe make some block of that 75 million available to local people to buy through their brokerage houses rather than selling it all to a pension fund out in Sacramento. Because I know they're, local people, I've seen this, like I say, in my prior years with Tropicana, Mr. Rossi made it very clear that he wanted that stock, a block of it saved for the Manatee County people, because he did not want it to be all, dispersed other areas, because he felt, they were a stakeholder in his company, and he felt they should have the ability to enjoy whatever the financial rewards would be. But I know you can't.
And that
But
is,
it'd be some moral suasion maybe when you get to whomever the winning bidder is, that you have one commissioner that would, like them to make some of that available to some of their local sales outfits, if you would.
and we can have that discussion as you recognize they're putting in a bid and they're responsible for selling that.
Right.
You do have a little more control on a negotiated transaction. We envision in the forward that going forward, we'd look at each transaction, how much pre-selling it needs, what the market looks like, and make a case-by-case recommendation. And part of that could be perhaps a desire as part of a negotiated sale to have either a special order period for local residents or some way of making it available on an ongoing basis.
Commissioner Benek.
So is there any downside to this competitive bid? We've been doing this negotiated one for so long. Is there any downside to this?
We work with both sides. What we tend to start with for our perspective is, we start with the thought that, okay, why should this be a negotiated sale instead of a competitive? An example of your last financing is because it was a refunding. Sometimes with the refunding, you've got to be a little bit better on your timing. That leads itself to competitive. In that one, everybody was coming to market at the same time. We wanted to make sure we had somebody focused on it. In this case, because there's not a lot of activity in the market right now, we think you're going to get a very good reception. But going forward, we would look at the nature of the financing the market each time.
All right, anyone from the public wish to speak on item number 48? Seeing no one come down, we'll close public comment. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move the recommended action.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hunsaker, you have something to say before we vote?
No, you can go ahead and vote, and then I'd like to say something.
Okay. All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Knack, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Mr. Hunsaker.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to commend Jan and Mike Gore and his staff for the effort they've put into this financing package. This is a unique time for the county. This competitive sale is important. The message that we've received from Fitch about the upgrade is extremely important to the county government, and it shows their faith in this Board of County Commissioners and the management folks, that they know what they're doing and they follow the plan as outlined in your policy directions. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Y'all rock. All right. Go buy myself a big filter. Go get a Mark.
Yeah. A big filter, expensive one.
I assume for that kind of money, it's big.
Micro
I hope it's
filter.
big.
It's the
All right.
biggest one in the country.
Number 51, Jerry?
One of the big-
Item number 51.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Jerry Lopez, Director of Redevelopment and Economic Opportunity. As per your July 24th board meeting, you made a motion talking about the port area and the economic development opportunities there. So we are bringing forward to you today our recommendation of how to proceed based on that motion. As you know, the Port Manatee area, and I have the area that we are going to be looking at here as well on the overhead, has the potential to be a significant economic driver for the region. We have a lot of incentives that have been put in place, including the planned development encouragement zone, zoning category, the Florida International Gateway, which has our tax increment financing, and as well as all of our other economic development incentive programs for that area, all with the goal of trying to increase the employment base for that area. However, as you have noted, despite these incentives, the area has been slow to develop, with an overall sense that the area does lack the infrastructure to be able to support companies that want a pad-ready, shovel-ready site to be able just to pull a permit and be able to build and be operational as soon as possible. So overall, the feedback that we have gotten from the EDC, from companies that we've worked with, and general property owners overall, is that there is this lack of infrastructure investment to make the area ready for that, given that it is in a great location and there's all these assets around it, including the railway, CSX, the port, as well as the interstates. So we wanted to bring forward to you our recommendation is to authorize us to proceed in engaging an engineering consultant to be able to look at this area holistically, not just the area specifically around the port and those PDEZ areas, but looking at a much broader area. And we're recommending from 75 west all the way to the water, 275 north all the way to the Manatee County line. This way we'll be able to look at all of our infrastructure, our utilities, water, sewer capacity, as well as transportation, our land development, what are the connections over to the counties overall. So we feel that this larger area would give us a better comprehensive look. So in addition, we do want to hire a consultant to bring them on to also to take a look at this overall area and look at all of these issues to determine the gaps that we need, as well as looking at a market analysis to identify the industry sectors, what's needed, what are the growth scenarios, and then what are the gaps in those services with the infrastructure to be able to put a vision overall of how this area needs to grow, and then what, from a recommendation standpoint, what do we as the county as well as the private sector need to do to be able to move that forward. So that's our recommendation right now. We're just looking for authorization to proceed. We want to use one of our engineers of record to be able to speed the process up. We do envision this to hopefully be about a 6-month timeframe. We do want to make sure that we engage our area stakeholders. So as part of the process would be to have several public workshops to be able to get feedback and ideas as we go through the process and look at the analysis. We do intend to be able to pay for this from the Port TIF, since there's funding in there. And once we refine the scope and engage the consultant, we'll bring forward that to you as a budget amendment at a future meeting. And that'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Johnson.
I'm struggling with this, Jerry, and I mentioned it to Ed at my meeting yesterday. And we don't own any of this land, correct? It's all privately owned. So we're going to spend county money to hire a consultant to come up with an infrastructure plan, even though we're going to have some input with them. I mean, we could come up with something and say, well, this is where we're going to put the new dump. That this would be the ideal location, or we're going to put the new jail. And obviously the landowners are going to go, are you kidding me? They're not going to be in favor of that. I mean, to me, I think they, ideally, I think they should be involved in the process to the point that they ought to have some skin in the game. I understand that there aren't that many landowners here. They should form like their own little corporation, and maybe we split the cost with them. We really don't know what we're talking about here. We're going to spend $50,000, $100,000, but I think they should, work with us. And then you get to the point of, when the study comes back and tells us the infrastructure, well, who's paying for that? I mean, I kind of look at Lakewood Ranch and I think, well, Lakewood Ranch, when they came to us, they didn't come to us. They developed their whole plan and went forward on it and paid for a lot of their stuff, until we got to the point where we were giving them some impact fee credits, or we still are, type of thing. So, I just, like I say, somebody's got to sell me on why we as a government should be spending the money to, develop this and not really know, what the landowners agree or disagree. So the best way to get them involved, I think, is for them to, pony up some money and help us fund this to come up with a plan that's acceptable to them. That's, good to us too. So that's just my thoughts.
Commissioner, if I may, I think part of the rationale is doing that market analysis to understand exactly what the industries could be, what that growth potential is, to identify what those growth scenarios are. Because as well as we know that, then the landowners know that, then it would help working together with the EDC and our other partners to be able to market that area for that growth, and then that future growth will help pay for the infrastructure that's needed in the future. But we need more information to be able to even go through that exercise of exactly what could happen and then what these companies need, so that the landowners also know what's needed. So it's I understand, working collaboratively, but from an economic perspective, we need to, in some points, really look at what are those growth scenarios and what we need to do to be able to try to help push that along.
But they're the ones that are going to benefit the most economically.
Well, we get the tax
Like,
base.
when the plan is done, they're then going to sell their land to a developer. So to me, they should, be in part of the game up front. That's all I guess that's my position.
Commissioner DeSabatino?
I see your point, and point well taken. Any idea of how much you're setting aside to do this study? I know you're saying it's going to come out of the port TIF. How much is in the port TIF, and how much were you planning to spend?
Right now in the port TIF, it's approximately 275,000 in there. I believe that this will come in around 150,000 or below.
So we won't have much left in that port TIF. And I know I think Commissioner Benak had meetings with a lot of the landowners up there, so I'd like to hear from her of what they were discussing at those past meetings, and if this coincides with what we're thinking about.
Actually, Commissioner Benak's next on the board, so.
Great, thanks.
There we go.
Yeah, I have met with the landowners there, you know, and they've been begging for this.
I know.
They've been begging for the county to take a leadership role in trying to understand what infrastructure is going to be possibly programmed in the future. We're not talking about building anything.
No.
We're talking about having a realistic plan for how this area could be developed for industrial-related uses.
Right.
Don't forget, it's almost all, not almost all, the property north of Buckeye Road is almost entirely entitled for residential land uses. The only reason it hasn't been built is because apparently the market hasn't said, go forth and build homes on these sites yet. The county, in being concerned about that, created the encouragement zone. They created zoning, flexible zoning, to allow them to develop for non-residential uses. They're kind of entitled for both. It's a very interesting thing, whatever they want to pull the trigger for. But it's a very difficult thing for a landowner to pull the trigger when they don't have a Buckeye Road. They don't have any plans for improvements of water and sewer. Who does those kind of major infrastructure development? Developers don't do that level of major infrastructure development. The government does. We're the ones that have the capital improvement plan. We're the ones that are building 44th Avenue. It's not an individual developer that is building it. If we don't have a plan, they will not come. It's that simple. And you know, it's tough to get 6 separate property owners to all work together on something. I've tried it in other locations. You might remember the White Hat group that did come together up at 301 and Moccasin Wallow and plan for infrastructure up there, and some of that is being implemented, but a lot of it is not.
Right.
You know, this is an area that we want to see develop in conjunction with our port. We have opportunities that will be gone if we don't take advantage of it. You know, at some point, this will be, and Southern Hillsborough County will develop as well. But if we want to have an infrastructure plan, perhaps we could get grants. I mentioned when 63rd Avenue, I hope I've got the right road, when Flowers Bakery came in, we were able to get a grant from the state to expand that roadway because it was in an area that was focused on, that we were focused on bringing jobs. I don't see why this area is any different. But if we don't pull the trigger, we'll be in the same place where we, you know, until this all gets built out as suburbia, and then we will have true conflicts. Good luck selling, you know, access to the port and residential development at the same time. I mean, we're gonna have red shirts out here saying you got to stop that kind of development.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, as far as market analysis, I'm not so sure I'm big on market analysis. I think understanding kind of what types of uses, but I think if we focus on, look, we know we would like to see this area develop with some sort of job-creating activity. It's not going to be retail. It's going to be, can we focus on, and I don't know because I'm not an expert in this, and so we probably do some level of market analysis, but I'm not talking about marketing anybody's property. I hope that's not being confused. But I'm talking about an infrastructure plan. What kind of water, what kind of wastewater, what kind of NPDES, what kind of stormwater, master stormwater, is it a possibility? Is that something that we could offer? Is that something we could get grants? And roads. Not to the level of a PD&E, but what kind of road capacity might we be talking about in order to accommodate the build-out of this area? It's an infrastructure plan, but we're not building anything at this time. We may take this plan, it may make sense to have some capital improvement projects, but our objective in this TIF is, like any other TIF, is to increase the values, so that we can invest in this area. But I don't see us doing it without a plan. That's my thought on this.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, this is not what I was looking for at all. We're skipping 100,000 residents don't have infrastructure in for 60 to 70 years, and it hasn't been put in yet. 17th Street East to the interstate needs infrastructure work done. 26th Street East, 25th Street East, I can name them over and over again. So I was not looking, I mentioned a CRA, which makes logical sense to invest private individuals to come in and invest into that area, and it also would help the property owners. But to me, the way this is presented, it's the worst form of government that you could imagine, and you haven't seen the backlash if we're going to spend that kind of money. And I've been personally asking for a TIF or a CRA district north of the river. The sheriff has patrols over there that can also participate with that to improve the quality of life and the street structures and sidewalks that they don't have yet. And to go out there to spend this money and 6 property owners which privately held, it don't give me cover to support anything like that. Basically, what you're doing is spending money that the property owners should be participating with without going with a community development district or a special district where you can get private investors to come in and work with government, invest and purchase the property that they have and make it feasible. But this is not a plan. This is something that you're doing a study on behalf of property owners. They're good people, but government has no business doing this without participation from the property owners. So from District 2, and I can say all the way to Commission Parish, we'll have some serious problems with this because you don't have sidewalks and streets. We have a plan, but they haven't been implemented in those districts yet. And to go out there and you can document who owns what, and we're spending this kind of money when we haven't did what we need to do in certain areas in this county, even over there in the Sabatino district. We got $10 million, but it ain't been spent. I got serious problem with this. A good business person would never support this.
Actually, I'm next, and I was the one that brought this forward.
That's what I
To have a plan, so we can get on, right now, the Port of Tampa and those areas and those communities, they're booming. We are not around the Port of Manatee, and this is not, this is a county question, I'm not talking about the port. The industry that you should be able to derive from that area, the jobs, and yes, it's going to cost us money. And no, I'm not saying we're putting in the infrastructure. What Jerry has done exactly what I asked for. We need a plan on why this area is so far behind in the growth that it should be. Once we know what we're talking about, then we decide with a plan. Do we go ahead? Do we not go ahead? Then we get with the property owners and saying, is this the plan we want? And who's going to pay for it? And where do we go? This is just a plan. It's going to cost some money. Yes, 17th Street needs sewage. We all know the areas, and I know Robin has places. We all know those areas. This is a plan to see if we can, an economic development plan for the area around. Yes, it is private property. And I understand what Commissioner Johnson said, perfectly reasonable. I understand exactly what he was saying. But if we don't start this, this will become completely residential, Buckeye Road, and then we're going to have problems. We have a gyp stack out there, we have industry out there, and we're going to be fighting in here all the time. We need to, I think we need to have an economic development plan for that area, and we need to know why it is not, with all the incentives that are there, why it hasn't done anything in the last 10 years. That is all I was asking for, is to look into this. And then I was hoping that maybe the state or the feds would help us. That would be on our legislative platform next year. Just the plan. Commissioner Baugh.
Yeah. Well, I am going to speak for the port on this. I don't know whether most of you have seen a study that was done. It was brought to the port. I was there for a meeting. I think, Jerry, you know about this. A couple of months ago, I think it was. And it was actually done by a realtor that had a client looking to build a manufacturing business. Port Manatee was the #1 place they wanted to be. But the problem was, it wasn't that the land was not there that they could have bought. The problem was infrastructure. There's no infrastructure. I was at the port yesterday with soon-to-be State Representative Will Robinson and the BIA Executive Director going on a tour. And we all went in the conference room and had a meeting, and we did discuss this issue as far as we have a lot of land, but the problem is there's no infrastructure. If you look and if you talk to any business, such as Benderson Development, I know right now they're building a new warehouse facility at 75 and 301. Most of these, particularly south in Miami, where there really isn't any land left, you can't hardly find warehouse facilities. They're leased. They're gone. We have a tremendous opportunity here to be able to do the same thing in Manatee County around the port, rather than always putting in residential areas. I can tell you, this is going to sound political, but it is what it is. Adam Putnam, as you know, was out at our port a few months ago. And one of these landowners that we're referring to, who was a farmer, he was there. And he spoke to me and to Commissioner Putnam about the importance of trying to make sure that we're looking to put in infrastructure so that we can move forward. Because right now, not a lot is happening because it's not a situation where the majority can't afford to do anything, because we need that infrastructure. No one is really talking about putting in residential. Do I think that it could happen? Oh, yeah. Does it matter that the infrastructure is necessarily there at this point? No. I mean, we have development further north with the same situation, but that was built. So to me, we're looking at a port that is financially doing extremely well. We've been very smart in what we've done with that port. We put aside land for the encouragement zone. It has not worked as of yet. What we have that we've made available, it's not working. So we need to look at it and see what it is that we need to do to be able to utilize the land closest to the port. And I know, we always talk about there's close to 5,000 acres. I mean, you know what, and we're probably not going to use 5,000 acres. But right now, we've got to be smart. This board, we're county commissioners, but we're also port authority. And, it all works together. I mean, the port brings in jobs, jobs, jobs. It has a huge economic impact for Manatee County, not to mention the taxes that it brings in. So I think I understand Commissioner Johnson's his view on this. I agree with it, but I can also tell you that at least one or two of the landowners would like to be involved in this, because they're not sitting back, adamantly going, no, I'm going to build houses, I'm going to build houses. They want to help the community. They want to help Manatee as well. So it is an issue that I think we need to look at. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the port and for Manatee County both. I consider myself a pretty good businesswoman. I've been in business over 20 years. I've been blessed. I've never had a down year. We've been up every year that we've been in business. So to me, it seems that, sometimes you got to spend some money to make money. And you've got to spend some money to make sure that you're going down the path you need to take that is the right path to take. So even though I don't like spending, and I'm hoping you can do it for less than $100,000 or $150,000, but I do think the landowners should be involved in this that's being done. But I think it is something we need to do. And then it needs to come back to the Port Authority members and the county commission to sit back and perhaps we can have the same results that we've seen in other areas of the state that's been so successful.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, if we weren't taking it out of the reserve or that fund, I probably wouldn't support it, and I can see both sides, but I think that we should move forward. I was on the board when we made this encouragement zone, and the reason why we did this was to stimulate some kind of manufacturing port-related activities so we don't get in the predicament like Miami, like the Port of Tampa. And this was a good mechanism to do it. Now, we're going to be using monies that this land has generated, and we could use it for incentives, but it's not a lot of money to offer incentives. So I think it would be prudent for us to at least do something, and then the people that own the land and us can do a joint partnership. When I first came on, Amy Stein and all of them had done the white hat thing. And look where it is today. I mean, with all the developers in the area, they got together and they all came up with a plan. But that was kind of a little bit before all of us, it was already implemented. But this is what I kind of see for this, because we can't lose, as Port Authority members, we cannot lose that opportunity to have our port landlocked. And that was the whole intention to start this from the very beginning. So I'm going to support this deal.
Okay. Commissioner Benek.
Yeah, maybe sometimes I say things and they're misunderstood, and perhaps that's the situation here, because certainly the idea that government has no business doing an infrastructure plan, we do a whole heck of a lot of infrastructure planning, so I'm confused by that comment. Also, I'm confused by the comment that we could spend this money elsewhere. No, it is a special district. It's a TIF. We have to spend the money in this district. And I recognize there are infrastructure shortfalls throughout this county in areas that are underserved by
I
infrastructure.
never thought I made that comment. Could you play
did.
back
You
the
said we
tape?
couldn't spend it because it wasn't a special district. It
I
is a
never said it. I said it should be one.
As I said,
Commissioner Benek
sometimes
has the
I'm
floor.
misunderstood.
CRA district,
Commissioner
what I
Benek
said.
has
I
the
never
floor.
said
This is
that.
a TIF. This is an area that we have to spend the funding in this
God you're on the
special
jury.
district.
I'll be
I am
convicted.
also a business person and have been my entire career. I do think we have very astute business folks that live or that own property in this community. Certainly, I am not representing 6 individuals. I mention that because those are the folks that I met with on the north side of Buckeye Road. And I don't even know who all owns the property. Some of the property has changed hands since then. I'm representing Manatee County. This area is an area where we, as the Port Authority, have invested significant resources in the growth of our port. We do that because we can, because it's a business. We are very prudent in our long-range planning for growth of that port. Why shouldn't we be, as the county, very prudent in looking at investment in the area surrounding the port? $150,000 isn't going to build 2 inches of a road. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about putting.
Can't even build a sidewalk.
We're talking about putting a plan together that would have to be funded by the private sector through impact fees, possibly through grants, through some participation, CDDs, the way that growth occurs in this county. And what does that growth provide? Taxes and jobs. It's no different than what's going on elsewhere. You know, we had a port connector. There was a port connector study that was undertaken by DOT.
Yep.
Lot of information available.
Oh, God, for years.
Tons of information that the taxpayers paid for.
Yeah.
What's going on with all of that?
Well, that's typical,
It
isn't
all
it?
got put on hold because of the recession.
Right.
Now, in our long-range plan,
Yeah.
we know that that port connector is needed again. Well, where's that going to come from? How's that going to be funded? How's it going to have impacts on these properties?
Actually, I don't know
Should it
that.
be updated? Those are the kind of things we need to know. We've got some development that's going on in there, right? I mean, we've got some people that are building stuff. How do we capitalize on that? And how do we make sure that we are working together? I'm not even aware of a lot of that. You are, Jerry, and you've had a lot of discussion, I know, with property owners. Perhaps you could comment on what they're asking for in this area.
Yes, I just wanted to give you a little bit of context in terms of the kind of the future growth potential. But as you all are very aware of Air Products, so they went in, they're one of our largest companies in the nation, but they built a 300,000 square foot manufacturing facility for $55 million. So that's been added to the tax base. Right now, they're looking at an expansion of 30 million that's added, and they have over 150 jobs. So it's these kinds of projects that add to the tax base, that add jobs, but they don't have spent enough in services, whether it's police services or library services, but they add that to our tax base. So that's the benefit, and that's looking at the overall growth. The new one that's coming in, if you recall, is Allied New Technologies. This was our first tax abatement company. They're in the process of building their 53 million facility, and they also have over 50 jobs. So these are the types of companies that we hope to bring in, but we need to understand a little bit better about what their needs are so that we can have the right infrastructure that's related to the growth. To answer your question, Commissioner Benek, about meeting with the property owners last February, we did have a meeting of the property owners just to look at those that weren't in the PDEZ or their property had that PDEZ zoning, to encourage them to perhaps get together, and we would also participate in doing some of the rezoning, but there was still a lot of just not knowing what the vision is, what the plan is, not sure exactly how to move forward. But overall, from discussions with them that staff has had, is that there is that need for what is the infrastructure that needs to happen to be able to get their properties ready. And that's the question that we're hoping to answer with the plan.
If I could just respond to that. And, I know that typically when we mostly see residential development, or we see large master plan development, places that have resources like Lakewood Ranch. It's always fascinating to see the resources they've had. They've created on a state level a taxing district, which is very unique, but it gives them the resources so they can build the roads, they can put the water and sewer lines, they can do that. Very few places have those kind of resources to put in infrastructure. And I think it is frustrating because I hear from some of the folks in this area, they'll tell me about places in Fort Myers or Lee County that offer incentives by building them a road or building them, whatever, a water line, and I'm like, well, we really don't do that much in Manatee County because we don't have the resources the way we're set up. But I think there are opportunities through grants that we need to look at, and I'd like to know kind of more about that. If that is in fact occurring in other areas and we're not taking advantage of it, I'd like to know if there's opportunities. So I'd like that to be part of this. So.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yeah, good discussion, and, I've been on here 8 years, and I remember when Joe was talking about the encouragement zone, and he named it International Gateway. And so the money is in there that's been accumulated through that area, through that TIF area. So as Carol Whitmore just said, I don't also have a problem with utilizing that money because it's going back in and getting a plan for that area. So, but I'm not going to be here after November. You're going to be here long after I'm gone. And I just, we need a buy-in from everyone that this is an area that needs our attention as well as the rest of the county. And each area, I know Commissioner Smith has concerns about parts of his district, and they're all parts of the whole picture. So this is a major part, and it's just not north of Buckeye. You can see it goes all the way down to Terracea. A lot of them in Terracea, they're all on well and septic, and I'm sure some of them would like to tie in and get a lot of these people off well water and septic. I know I would love that. But it also boils down to, and I'm supporting of this, sticking to getting the plan and doing something with the plan.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. And like Commissioner Smith said, there's $10 million in the Southwest TIF plan waiting for something to happen.
Somebody to come up.
Yeah, so, but in the meantime, we can do something with the plan. Because once you start doing something, then other people will take notice. It's just like, you're going I love equating with shopping. You're there buying something and someone else wants to buy it because you're buying it. So you just have to do something with the plan, and I just want the commitment from this board. You can't commit future boards, but, you know, just sticking with it and doing the plan, because right now, there's no plan and it's not working. So we need to do something else.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
You know, thank you, Madam Chair. When the commission have time, come by and see the plan that was done for Memphis area about 14 or 16 years ago and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and never was implemented. Since then, there have been hundreds of arrests, deaths, and everything else that took place. It never was implemented. Study after study in this county government has never been implied, have never been put to usage. We do a study, and that's all this is. I have no qualm with the money being spent, but not this way here. My whole concept of supporting that area was in a whole nother way. It was not this way here. Maybe this should have been something that was done in Minca City years ago. They have some infrastructure problems out there too. When that was first developing farming land, and people look at me funny, we had a farm out there 30 years ago. So learn your history first. They cried for this kind of study to take place out there. They begged for this kind of study for roads and things to take place out there. Guess what? They never got it. And so this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about that needs to be looked at in a different manner. Certainly those individuals out there deserve to, and I support them doing things with their property. And to the point that Commissioner Johnson mentioned, by the way, we are looking for a new jail and a dump. We could be mighty naive up here if we want to.
Landfill.
There is two different, and I've had this conversation. You can't build it in Commissioner Johnson's district. You don't have the space. Can't build in District 2, you don't have the space. So why are we doing these different things? What we're talking about, creating a situation that we're going to have to deal with sooner or later, about enticing things that we know we got to plan for the future. Those conversations should be part of what we're talking about doing today. And so that's what I have concerns for. I thought it should have been a plan before Amazon got built in Ruskin. When I was city commissioner, they managed to kind of have no plan. That facility should have been north of the river. It should have been across the street from the port. They didn't want to go to Ruskin. And how in the world Ruskin beat us out? Someone tells me that. It's vision. It should have been right there, all those jobs, because we had the vacant land. And guess what? They'd have partnered with you with infrastructure. I'm done.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, again, just to clarify my position, I'm not against going forward on it. I mean, I think it's a good idea, to put, I just don't like the structure. I love private-public partnerships. I think if they, have, again, some money into the deal, gives, it reduces the amount that we have to take out of that TIF up there. And I think then they have a real vested interest in making sure that the plan, when it's finalized, gets, that there's the next step, the implementation or whatever, we're gonna have their attention. Not that we're not going to anyway, but I think, like I say, that's just a personal feeling of mine. If the government's gonna get involved in it, there's nothing wrong with the private citizens to help defray the cost.
Commissioner Ball.
Yeah, I just heard from Carlos Begaris, and he's watching the meeting. He agreed with everything that I said. I mean, this really is about the port. It's about how we can bring business to the port. It's about manufacturing. It's a hot commodity today. It should be around the port. I mean, that's really what this is about. And by the way, a lot of people, obviously, if we can bring in manufacturing around the port, that's going to mean jobs to people in Manatee County. It's going to mean economic impact to people in Manatee County, also to the county itself. So it's a win-win. I would like to see, as Commissioner Johnson said, though, I do believe that the land owners need to be involved in this. I would love to see them financially participate, but that being said, right now for me, the main thing is I want to find out how we can help the land around the port get manufacturing companies in there. I mean, that's what it's all about for me. Commissioner Benak, you mentioned the connector road for the port. The port is under the assumption from FDOT that that's kind of gone by the wayside, and we're not even sure at this point that we need it because of 41 and going down to 275 and so forth. You know, it's obviously, if you want to look 30 years out, which we should do, we need to probably do that and see where we are. You know, if times have changed quite a bit. I mean, if you look at Port Manatee, not Manatee, but Miami and the Everglades, I saw pictures yesterday what they looked like 30 years ago and what they're looking like today, and it's huge, the difference. So, you know, for me, it's a no-brainer. We need this, you know, for the port, to see what we can do for the land. The encouragement zone has been there. That's what's going to pay for it. You know, and we need to make sure we've got a plan together and we're going to follow through, and I think it's important. So when you're ready, Madam Chair, I'll
All right.
make a motion.
Commissioner DeSabatino?
Well, as we've all stated, the landowners up there have put skin in the game. They've contributed part of their tax money is going into this TIF, so they do have some skin in the game. And each year, more and more of their tax dollars go into the TIF. So I also can foresee a big distribution hub up there because we have the water, we have rail, and we have the interstate, and we're right at the border of another county. So I can see a huge distribution hub there, like they're doing in Orlando. And Orlando is in the middle where there's no port. So that could be huge. And
Their port, Orlando, Port Manatee, we're their port.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we have a little teeny airport right there, but the airport further south. And Commissioner Smith, every area is feeling basically the same. I know in South County, they spent a lot of money back in 2000, 2001 for the Bay Shore study. And the study revealed in 2001, 17 years ago, that we need sidewalks, street lights, infrastructure, and we're still sitting here and with the same thing. We have money in the plan, so, you know, future boards need to work the plan. And, you know, but we did have that downturn, so that's why a lot of this stuff got you know, pushed off to Never Never Land. So, and then also this will kind of dovetail into, I think, what we're talking about next week is regarding buying more land near those soccer fields. And I'm just throwing this out that I know that we have plans on putting new buildings out there and so on and so forth. But in my opinion, do we need to work on that? I know you need to have buildings in the future, but maybe we need to refocus and just do certain, you know, these other plans that we need to do now, and then segue into what we need to buy for the future. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore quickly, and then
Just real
Commissioner
quick,
Smith.
and I'm done, and hopefully we'll move forward. I think in the past, I remember coming before the board, we did talk about a landfill in that area, and the geology of the land is too low. So that was nixed, and I know that, I'm sure that they're moving and looking for other areas, but nothing has happened in this area. And it's always been the intention of Port Manatee and the county commission to have port-related business. Nothing has happened. So use the money that's been generated there from taxes that we're setting aside to do the study. And then the others that decide that we can have port-related business, we don't want another development, please. I just, you know, then we're going to landlock our port. We can't do that. We need to be proactive so that doesn't happen. So somebody make a motion.
Commissioner Ball will make the motion after Commissioner Smith, and then public comment. Commissioner Smith.
Madam Chair, I support everything that was said. That's not the concept, and the reason why I am not supporting this motion is the way it's presented, to be honest with you. No fun and take us no cover. It could have came a different way. We can say what we want here, but it's going to look a different way to anybody that's watching this. Rather, I don't care whether they got 2 cents or $20 million. It's going to look a little different to them from that standpoint. And the fact that what Commissioner DeSabatino, she's correct. There's study after study has been done, And we, the board, over years, we do the study, they tell us what we need to do, and what we do, we fight against the study. And don't do anything. So we don't accept recommendations for study. That's why we have these problems. There's tons of studies been done. I want much success for that area because I think it's a great opportunity for economic development. I think it's a great opportunity for commercial. It's just a wonderful opportunity. It's close to the water. I am not knocking that at all, and I understand that. My only concern is the way this is presented, I cannot support. Thank you.
All right, anyone from the public wish to speak on item number 51? Come forward and state your name.
For the record, Glenn Gibolina, taxpayer, community activist. $150,000, that's what we're talking about. It's amazing. Skin in the game. You're right. You're absolutely right. You look at Air Products, you know why they bought there? Because they can do a bigger road to bring their machinery down to the port. You have to let industry make the decisions on the infrastructure. And I'm with Mr. Smith. That money could be used well. The moral compass is off on where that money's going. You tell Bocaris out at the port, say, look, go get 15 industries, have them kick in 10 grand apiece, and there's your 150,000. It's a great idea. Just silo it and let somebody else pick up the cost. You're going to go through this study and say, we need this, this, and here. And at the end of the day, you're going to get some big corporation coming and saying, scrap that. We want the road here. We want the rail there. We want this here. And that's what they're going to do. This is a waste of taxpayers' money.
Not taxpayer money.
Glenn has the floor.
TIF money. The TIF money could be used in better areas. And this thing should be funded by industry. You're worried about, their landowners are worried about it. You're worried about development. Zone it heavy industrial. Zone it light manufacturing and be done with it. Is that so hard to understand? That's what I would do. No, this is a bad deal. And by the way, if the TV monitor was on this morning, I'd have heard my name.
Oh, sorry. Anybody else from the
Came out to
public
get
wish
you.
to speak on number 51? Seeing no one forward, we will close public comments. Commissioner Ball.
I can only say that I'm a citizen as well, so I would cross out his negative vote. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to authorize staff to proceed with engaging an engineering consultant to develop a Northwest County plan.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner DeSabatino?
Yeah, just for the record, we can't rezone someone else's private land
thank
without
you.
their permission, so just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
All right, we have a
Thank you for
motion
that.
by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner DeSabatino. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Right.
All right, all right,
Oh, sorry.
let's go back. All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay.
Girls against, she just said it, the girls against the guy.
What was it?
All right, number 51, 5-2. Dashboard report, any questions, or do y'all want to, Commissioner?
Oh, Steve, okay.
Boys, girls.
Oh,
Where's the
Ed's-
girls?
Ed's
kind of
wants
a
to say
first.
something.
Mr. Untucker?
I'd like to point out in the dashboard report, under building departments issued,
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
John, Jerry.
Way to jump in. Good job.
the activity in the building department, both on residential building permits and commercial, are up over last year, up over 2 years ago.
I saw that.
And we continue to be baffled about why the property tax
Revenue is down.
increase is not matching that.
Well, maybe he's wrong.
We'll wait and see at the
Yeah.
end of September.
Charlie.
All right, we did finish everything, did we not? Do y'all want to finish commissioner comments and then adjourn for the day?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay, all right, then that's what we're doing. Commissioner Whitmore.
Real quick, I brought up to you guys about the administrator, I think I did, of Blake Hospital calling me when our EMS went out to MTC to train the school teachers how to stop the bleed, and found out that the school board has a policy that you can't use tourniquets. Sorry. Anyway, so I didn't know who to send it to, so I sent it to somebody here because I don't know who's in charge anymore or even where to send it. So they sent it to the school board. Actually, Charlie Kennedy sent it to someone, and come to find out, They're going to rewrite, because Blake contacted me yesterday because they have another class. They're going to rewrite, the school board's going to, they got permission from the Florida Department of Health to rewrite the guidelines for Manatee County school nurses and tourniquet protocol for emergencies. So that was a plus for us, and thank you to Randy Karen from Lake Hospital.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, just real quickly, just ask the administrator if he has a timing or has heard anything more from the state regarding the $4 million.
Sarasota.
And that we've given to Sarasota. I don't, it's, just I think if we could get some feedback by next month as to where we are or whether we've heard anything from the state. And then the second part of that, I guess, is, as to how it happened. We've got all these internal auditors on staff. We've got external auditors at the courthouse, and then we've got ex-auditors that do all of that. And it seems like this is a pretty good chunk of money to suddenly, that we've gotten, and now we're may have to give back. And I know you haven't maybe got all the numbers, but I just think we need to keep our eye on that as we get into the budgeting process.
Thank you. To answer the
Good
first
idea.
question, we've heard nothing from the state since I reported to the board. We continue to monitor that on a daily basis. We'll report to you as soon as we hear something from the state. As it relates to your second question, we do not have the authority, nor does the clerk have the authority to audit the state. It's an issue within the state and how they allocate the revenues that come in from the vendors who collect the sales tax. And it's within their system, and their auditors ought to be having some review over the Department of Revenue as to how it is that this potential error surfaced. But we've heard nothing, and we're in communication with the clerk's office on a daily basis to see if anybody hears anything. And as soon as we do, we will report to this board.
Do we not have the authority to ask the clerk for an explanation as to?
It has nothing to do with the clerk. This is
I talked to her.
retail vendors supply the information, their sales tax reports, to the state of Florida. At the state of Florida, they take that data that comes in and allocates the portion to the various counties and cities within the state, and we don't see any of that behind the scenes, how they do what they do. It's nothing we can look at or the clerk could look at. It doesn't come our way. It's from the vendors to the state, and then subsequently from the state to us.
I don't know. I still think something's
Okay.
strange.
Fishy.
But we'll work on that as we go through it.
Commissioner Burnett?
Thoughts on it?
Well, I'll just make a couple comments. One, bank error in our favor. That's the way I want to keep looking at this, because it was a bank error by the state in our favor. I'm not sure what the monopoly rules say, but I say we get to keep it.
Finders
Oh, boy, good luck.
Bank error
I
in our
hope so.
favor.
Go past, go and collect $4 million.
Regarding tourniquets at the school board, let's see if they can figure out how to stop the bleeding of funding. They need more than just one tourniquet. Just one comment. Thank you, that's it.
De Sabatino?
Good news. The brother and sister that came here, the Reinhardts, we found them a new apartment.
Oh, good.
They found a new apartment, and they're
So they have to
No,
leave.
they had to leave.
they're leaving Robbins.
Wow.
And so they're going to where they set up new, and I had worked with a couple different agencies to get them forward funding and so forth and so on. So they're going to be moving in. We got Harvey to extend, remember, they gave him the 15th as the deadline. We got him to extend it to September 3rd. So we've been working with Harvey, and it's a win-win. And they take the buses everywhere, so I want to look into with Mr. Steele how to maybe get them some bus passes and so forth and pay for those. So that's a real good end of the story. And I spoke with Harvey briefly, and he has offers on a couple different properties that he's working on to develop.
Yeah.
And one, I'm not going to say, but it would be really cool. So he's just trying to, provide some affordable workforce housing. And, a lot of, some people have, a beef with this or that, but, he is providing a great service at a great price. And wraparound services, so, No, and then he said to me, what should we name the new building? So I'm like, I don't know. So we'll see.
He's offered to name it after me. I said no.
Yeah, so, we'll see. So,
Okay.
good news.
Commissioner Ball.
Just a couple of things. I know we're getting ready to get back into the budget situation, and it is kind of difficult to know what to do and the decisions to make if we're not sure about this $4 million. So, Mr. County Administrator, I really feel that by now they should know something, and we should have something in writing from them, because I don't see how we can make decisions on anything until we really know what we're looking at with that $4 million. And the other thing that I would say is on the CIP, I know, and Ed and I talked about this yesterday, and we've had several conversations about extending Lena Road all the way through from 64 over to 70. That would be a great way to go from 70 over to 64. It would take some traffic off of 75. And, I don't know if y'all have been down both sides of Lena Road recently, but a lot of new businesses have gone in. So the place has really built up. I go on that road quite frequently on both sides of that road. So we need to look at that. And the other thing is, Ed, I was seeing that you have Honore, the study that we asked to be done on Honore, not coming back to the board in a workshop until October. Is there any way we could do it a little sooner, or is it just the study is taking that long, or I haven't talked to anybody. Do you know off the top of your head?
I've been a little busy with this fish thing. Can I get
What
back to
fish
you?
day?
Can I get back to you tomorrow on that?
Please.
Something's
Go ahead.
fishy.
Something's fishy there.
I think Commissioner Whitmore has something to say about something you
bad.
said.
The 4 million, I know when Jan came before us at the meeting when she let us know about this, she said if this does end up that we have to pay, that she is going to assure and tell them that we are going to pay it back when we can do it and make small payments over years if we had to. But she is going to try to fight it.
Well, and I do appreciate that, and I do remember Jan saying that, Commissioner Whitmore. But I also know the state, and ultimately, it's their decision.
Yeah, I know.
And we'll fight it, and my question to Ed when we were talking about it was, have you talked to Senator Galvano on this issue? So, I know that probably we can set up some sort of payment plan, but the problem is we don't know. That's the problem.
All right, Commissioner Smith.
Ed looks like he was getting ready to say something.
I think they're still researching the magnitude because they want to be absolutely sure when they put out a number that it's absolutely correct. And so I think they're still doing their due diligence as to how many properties are involved and how long is the error taking place. And they'll let us know when they're ready to let us know, but we're tuned in and we're prepared to negotiate something.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I had asked the county administrator the same question in my briefing. What's interesting to me is that they know we owe $4 million, but they can't tell us how. Seems like they will have the answers to how we owe $4 million and why, if you say we owe $4 million. Certainly, I hope we get some type of answer because, to Commissioner Barr, she's correct. I don't want this to be used as a budget bamming ring that, we may have to pay the $4 million and it makes no sense for us to do a budget because anything we talk about, we can't do it because of this, we can't do it because of
Get
that.
those flag
That's not a
items.
good way to do a budget. So certainly, I hope that we can have some type of answer. It's the state. The state says that we owe some money, and actually that question is starting to be asked in the community. What about the $4 million?
Yeah.
If you owe the $4 million, how are you going to be able to do this and that? So we need to know the questions, and so whatever they use to say that we owe them the money, it seems to me that they should already have the information showing where we owe the money. I would imagine that before I say somebody owes something, I'm going to show them how they owe it, but I'm not going to say you owe it and then all of a sudden that I can't show you. So certainly that's something that we need to definitely know before we move forward. And, you know, you look at the red tide, and I was out to IMG, and I had firsthand of what it was like when I got out the car. And let me tell you,
Our house.
it was absolutely stunning
Down in
when I got out. And then it was more stunning when I went into IMG Country Club to look out the window and you see rows and rows of fish. It was just amazing to me. And I think Commissioner Johnson mentioned this. We don't know where this is going to end at. We don't know whether the 500,000, whether it's a million or what. But what I do know, we got to get some control of this. We're going to have a tourist season that is not going to be tourist friendly. And Commissioner Bard's right again. I don't know if I said that 2 times in one
Gosh, I
meeting.
don't know, twice in one meeting?
It's on the front page of the newspaper ain't helping us at all.
Let me call
either,
the East
'cause
County
that's
Observer,
going-
hold on.
That's going global, and the only thing people seeing is the fish in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna be booking if I'm seeing that.
No, I'm tired of it.
So it's
Write
gotta be
something
what we
positive.
doing, how we cleaning up, and by the way, we open for business. So it's not good for economic development, it's not good for business, it's not good for planning, because people are planning for Thanksgiving and Christmas right now, so.
Labor Day.
Yeah, for Labor Day, and so, I absolutely echo that. I have nothing else, we meet Thursday. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hunsaker.
Nothing more to report. Thank you.
All right, I'm very proud of our, he usually,
Oh.
he had raised his hand, obviously he changed his mind. Just like everybody else, very proud of, I think we're doing as much as we can as a county on the red tide. And believe it or not, it can get worse. The late 60s, early 70s, it was in, the red tide actually was in Tampa Bay.
I lived there.
And it was all up and down the rivers, all the way, dead fish all the way to Fort Hamer, every canal on the river, and was back in those days, and we didn't clean it up. So it can get worse, so let's hope we don't go there, and we are adjourned.
Yahoo!